Good afternoon, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of Kiko's Freethinkers Forum. This is episode 139. We're joined by a first-time guest, and his name is Anthony Dax Simpson. He's based out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and we're going to talk a lot today about kind of the previous conversation, 138, this idea of organizing, but we're going to really elevate a project called The Voices of Poverty that Anthony is going to discuss with us today. And we're going to get some discussion about some of his recent Substack postings. And I'm sure we would talk a little bit about the 2024 election, since some of the stuff that he's writing about kind of conflicts, with what we're trying to battle against. Just a lot of information ahead. The rise of anti-fascism. How do we combat the authoritarianism that we're seeing in this country and around the world? Just a lot of things to discuss today. But I just want to say, Anthony, thanks for accepting the invitation and welcome to the show.
I'm excited, man. Thanks for having me, man. I've been anxious about this for a while now.
Well, that's good to see. We might as well just cut straight to the chase because we've been following each other, through social media, and this is the first face-to-face that we've had. And just for the audience to know, Anthony is also going to be joining us to election night coverage. I haven't really given the details with that, but we have a full panel of people, and there's no pressure on anybody. It's really just, it's almost like a watch party. But with me, it's not just, we're not going to just be sitting around. We're going to be talking about stuff. We're not just going to be sitting around watching these two bozos on TV. Like, who gives a shit? We know that we're fucked anyway as far as whichever option it is, but we're going to be sitting around. But we're also going to be talking about beyond 2024. Instead of us just sitting around watching the results, what can we be doing between these 365-day cycles, these 2-year cycles, these 4-year cycles, instead of just sitting on the sidelines? So we have a lot to discuss for November the 5th. Election night, Anthony will be with us. Zach Hyden, the Mad Redneck, a bunch of people that have been on the show before will join the audience. Yeah, and we will have a live stream. It's going to be a live stream, so there will be plenty of opportunity for people to ask questions to all of the people on the panel. As far as the Voices of Poverty, can you explain to the audience, like, what is this exactly? It's a very cut to the chase name, but what exactly is it? Is it an organization? What is it?
I mean, so right now it's really still just, we talked before the show, we have our mutual friend Free, Two Spirit, and he's the one that kind of started it, the idea of that. I mentioned in one of the Substacks that I wrote, kind of how that came about. He created a Facebook group, and I was like, yep. I was like, this is a great place, to start, as far as, creating a lane that you want to fly through. And, that's right up my alley. So I was like, yeah, this is strong. I was excited when he was like, yeah, I want you to help me with this. You know what I mean? And, so I hopped on board, and I was like, yo, let's start a Facebook page. He was like, yeah, go for it. So, I started that page. I kept it real streamlined. I tried not to really put a lot of politics on there as much, you know what I mean? Like I do on my personal stuff, like I wanted to really hone in on the voices of poverty. At first, naturally it just kind of starts with, kind of just loading it up with different kinds of content, memes, things people just generate, get in front of people's eyes and stuff like that. That Facebook group that he created didn't really take off too much. I don't see much coming from that. I tried to reach out to it a little bit, like, hey guys, what's going on? Like, there's some things going on with this, thinking about making some moves. And nobody really engaged me on that. So I was like, just kept going. Now, and we got like something like 2,600 followers or something like that on our page. I get great interaction. You know what I mean? People engage. I'm not quite as, like on my personal Facebook page, like I'm super aggressive. Like I put real hardline stuff on there. I tone it back on that page, and I don't, I'll engage a little bit with people back, but I don't argue on there. Like I'll get caught up on my personal stuff, because that's not what the page is. It's like, we might not be thinking the same, but you got a voice too. Like, so I just let them have whatever it is they're saying. You know what I mean? It's fine. It's, there's a table being set to talk. That always excites me. Naturally, my next thought was like, obviously, I can't just sit here with a Facebook page and be like, I'm doing something. I want to engage more, like, not necessarily from there, but like, I want to engage people like you. I want to engage people like your guests. I want to engage people in the community. I want to do all these things. So it's like, well, hey, this is a perfect platform for that I've already started to kind of put together. With the encouragement of people like you, I started, trying to, build a foundation, something to just build off of. And it's a learning process. I still got so much to learn. Like, every time I figure out, I'll figure out this step that was just in front of me, and it's like, all right, I know what the next step is, and I'll start to take a look at it, and it's like this whole can of worms, and I'm like, all right, let's get to it. Let's start learning. My motto in life is just remain teachable. You know what I mean? Like, that's one of my things. So I'm always like, what can I learn from this? How can I learn from this? And then I started saying to myself, well, isn't that how this works, right? You learn and then you share. Just finding different ways to share the things I'm learning, the things I'm exposing myself to. Sometimes just my stuff off the top of my head, you know what I mean? And just trying to build that platform, and hopefully as time goes on, I'll have, something similar to what you're doing, some kind of, interactive podcast where I get to talk with people and let them tell their stories and give people a chance to know them. Like, another thing I'm a firm believer in is, like, you can't hurt somebody when you care about them. You know what I mean? If they exist to you, it's that, not that there's not people out there capable of that, but that, in general, you don't hurt people you care about, and when you know them, when you get people, so when you get a chance to know people and give people a chance to know them and, like, make them real, maybe someday it'll be harder to hurt these communities that aren't being seen and just don't exist outside of a ballot box, and the always the acceptable sacrifice for the betterment of the community and stuff like that, something along them lines.
100%. I'm actually still surprised. I did not realize that Two Spirit had something to do with the page. I didn't know that. That's
Oh
news to
yeah,
me.
absolutely,
I
man.
didn't. I
Like,
didn't know that at all.
coming up with the name and all that was all him. And, starting that first group was all him. I kind of had to get out of his way a little bit, let him do what he was, had to do to, get where he's at. Like we said, it seems like he's, starting to do good now. So it's like, I had to get out of his way a little bit and kind of just let things evolve the way they have. And, I'm still hoping to get him involved with that again, because he's got an important voice.
I tried to be sensitive to that, and I still may reach out to him, down the road for sure. But I've just been trying to, that's really important to me too, the mental health aspect, because I've had to take breaks from this because it's not just burnout. It's just easy to just not care because you get so much negative stuff that goes on, not just in the real world, but just like in our personal lives and stuff. I mean, it becomes almost like too much of a battle, it seems at times. But we're still here. That's what's important. We're still here and we're still building. And I hope to build with Two Spirit, with yourself, and a lot of the people that won't be on the show and people who will be on the show. We're just in it together, really. And that's what I like about the messaging. But I almost feel like in ways when you're writing on here in these Substack articles, it brings into questions like the class component. Is it simply that the message that we have and the message that we feel, is that a message that the ruling class is interested in, I guess, because we're so vested in these debates, for instance, we're so vested in this election coming up, but we kind of admit already, me and you, we've already kind of thought to ourselves, we know that these people really don't have any interest in us. So what would be answer, or what would be your advice to people who say, why should we care? Like, is there a danger of not caring in this process? And what would be that danger? And what is the opposite side of that opinion too?
So look at the world, right? Like, it's easy to see, like, we're not on the right path at all. Like, for myself, when I say we know these people don't care about us, we know they don't care about the message. There's very specific, things they're trying to accomplish. So they ain't got nothing to do with us. They need us to go for the ride so they can accomplish that. At the end of the day, we really got to realize we're the majority. Them people in power are not the majority. They got the power, but they're not a majority, and we've let them break us down and divide us and control us, and just beat us down to this place of capitulation. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Where we're just waving the white flag, like whatever. That's not new. What I just said, like, as far as it's always been known. We got to engage ourselves, the people. We got to build the base. We need people to stand up and say, hey, enough is enough. Like, we're really not, if it actually happened, if everybody stood up and was like, you know what? Yeah, we need to do something about this, whether it's, supporting a third party or, an independent, like somebody like Bernie tried to be or something like that. It could happen. Why couldn't we get somebody like that into office? Why couldn't we 2 years later, as a majority, fill them all the different elected officials, whether it's at the federal government or even around us at the local government, with people that represent us? How many of us, our livelihoods are based on labor, yet that corporate rule, that corporatocracy that just owns us, beats down every movement, labor movement, that comes about, even when they're trying to play with them. So, like, I'm actually in the middle of this Substack I've been writing right now, and it changes so much on me because I'm learning so much about, kind of like the history of labor movements, compared to the relationship with the corporate world and all that stuff. And the more you read it, it's like, damn, they own these. You know what I mean? Like, our labor movement is considered weak around the world compared to
Mm-hmm.
other nations. So I guess at this point, we got stuff like the AFL and the CIO, these really strong labor movements, union organizers, yada yada. They rely so heavily on the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm.
We're relying on the governance as opposed to the strengths of the organizers and the tradesmen and the workers and labor. You know what I mean? Like, we're counting on justice to take that turn to what's right. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And I think they've proven time and time again that even in this most pro-labor presidency we're experiencing right now isn't pro very much.
It doesn't feel like it
Or,
is.
like, I mean, is there people that are benefiting? Sure, but it never, there's always a line that these things reach. And then you got that whole just groups of people that are just continuously left out. And these people work
Mm-hmm.
their tails off. You know what I mean? They're the hardest workers in the country. You know what I mean? Because, like, most of the people that benefit from that stuff are sitting at a desk. Did they earn that desk? Sure. But did they earn the right to look down at the people that got them there? I don't think so. You know what I mean? And, I'm not in a union myself. So Pennsylvania is, an at-will state. So I got two options as far as the corporation that I work for. Play ball, get the hell out. Like, you know what I mean? If I stand up and be like, hey, let's organize and get these, y'all can get out of here. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
they'll call in their agencies and have this place packed back up with people to do the stuff like that. Corporations
Exactly.
have spent decades. You know what I mean? We're probably going on 100 years of creating this hammer that they got on people. It's going to take people to break that. Nothing about anything we're experiencing is labor friendly. Even half the people in those labor movements are inserted by the people trying to disrupt them. You know what I mean? You know, like, and they work too closely and they're too tied together, and they got an agenda that just has been starting to miss the mark for a long, long time. You know, especially the CIO. You know, like when they first started, they were wide open. You know, they were probably the first ones to be like wide open, like we want to, you know, we want to organize for everybody. It hasn't really shaped out that way. Our political system doesn't allow who we are as a nation. Just, you know, what's it been like? It's over 100 years now. It's about 80 to 100 years since we've had a true pro-labor president that actually you know, put his foot down and said, "Hey, we're gonna do the things that essentially built this country as we know it." That's nothing new. None of that is really anything new. It's like we all know this, and yet we sit there and for some reason we're like, but we can't. All kinds of people making excuses. Well, no, you got to take that slow bus. You know, oh, we just got to keep it right here. You know, yeah, you know, because if you just whatever, we have the capacity to move a little faster than that. We choose not to. You know, out of fear. It's out of fear. It's out of, you know, like I said, we got lives, we got things to do, we got work, we got yada, yada, yada. Like American freedom has become like a highly designed product. You know what I mean? And if you're going to benefit from it, like you're going to fit in that mold or you're not, you know, and that's not, it's time to shatter that mold.
I want to clear one thing up. When you refer to a group called Put People First PA, and is this just an organization? What is this exactly?
Yeah, so they're an organizing organization out here in Pennsylvania. I've organized with them a few times over the years. We've been and we found ourselves in a lot of the same spaces. We recognized that, so we would pool some of the things we were doing, whether it was like protests or demonstrations, different things like that. And like, yeah, they're very strong. Their path, how they see this fight shaping out, and just very dedicated to staying the course and empowering people and teaching people and all the things we always hear. They're delivering.
And
that's
are
you know,
they free, or are they compromised, or are they completely wide open when it comes to they don't have anybody to answer to, basically?
Oh no, not at all. And
Okay.
they're highly critical of, you know, the two-party system, and you know, they've built themselves up for sure.
That's good to know. We're going to come back to labor, but I want to clear some things up because I'm trying to see which one it was. I don't think it was the Poor's Voices of Poverty article it was. I believe, okay, so you start out saying, you talk about discrimination, exploitation, laws that target impoverished and marginalized communities. What does it mean? Like, what does the word poverty mean to you? Like, what is poor? Because when my dad came on the show, he sees it as basically they're defining poor, like we stratified poor, even not there's levels to poor. He's like, there's trailer park poor, there's projects poor, there's people that's renting an apartment poor. And he contests that basically there's no middle class. Like, they're telling us that there is this big middle class, but is the middle class like an illusion? Like, or most people in the poverty category, like what exactly is that to you? Like this whole idea of poverty.
Right. So for me, you know, I think we all know, like, I think we've all, you know, growing up in this world have watched that poverty line move, shift, and it continues. And I mean, yeah, I absolutely wholeheartedly agree. Like, what middle class? If you're not making 150, 160, 170, you know, I guess depending on where you live, you know, upwards of $200,000 a year, like,
That's crazy to me.
you're probably going to struggle. You know what I
That is
mean? But like,
crazy. Yeah.
you know, so for me, you know, if I'm having a conversation with somebody and they say, man, If they say to me, I work, I own a home or something like that, like I don't own a home, but maybe they say that, but they're like, man, bills ain't being met, child care's through the roof, we're struggling, we're sinking, I'm making them questions. Do I pay the light bill or, yada, yada. So that person's struggling with poverty. They're impoverished. And then, sure, is there levels to it? There's severe in poverty where, we got out by where I live in my town, we got a couple spots. One spot is, they call it Tent City.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And when I get my podcast up and running, that's the spot I'm going to go visit and talk, introduce the world to. And then we also got there's a new spot that they started using. We got this little park, this memorial park. It's like this little township park, and they built this nice gazebo in there, right? There's like 4 or 5 dudes that were like, we're chilling out here. This is where we stay now. So it's like, and they've gotten some attention, and there's things like that. Like, right now, them dudes are suffering extreme poverty. Like, so here's the thing. We got to help these guys to the point where it's like, we got to take them to, like a state rep or something. Because like, the one guy, he's like, yeah, I need to get ID, but I can't get ID without my social security card. But I can't get my social security card without my ID. And I can't get in one building without one, and they won't let me in the other building without, and that legit happened. And I was like, what? You know what I mean? So it's like, you got, but you put them in touch with a state rep. They pick up the phone and say, like, make this happen. They have that power. So, it's like connecting them dots and getting the people the resources, so them guys in them extreme poverty, obviously that's a different level. That's harsher than what some other folks might be experiencing. Just because somebody's indoors don't mean they ain't struggling with poverty. Just because somebody got to eat steak tonight don't mean poverty isn't a part of their world, their life, especially if you got a big family. Bigger family you got, more likely you're just like one big problem away from being pushed over that cliff.
100%.
And it ain't getting any easier out there. And our representatives surely ain't representing anything that's looking to change that.
That's a good way to put it. No, I'm glad you specified that, because people, we get exploited so much, and it's not from you obviously. It's just more so providing clarity so people understand what this is, because we hear the politicians always talking about, they use this language, and I think it was Vivek Ramaswamy. He kept saying, oh, when he was running against Trump, he was in Philadelphia, he was in this place called Kensington.
Yes.
And he kept bringing it up over and over and over. It's obviously a way to tap into the voters. Like
Oh, that's all it's ever been. Kensington, that's a neighborhood that, I've spent a lot of time in that section of the city. It's been that way for a long time by design. What's the city to do? You got large group of homeless people, affected by drug addiction, mental health issues, all them kind of things. What do you do with them? We'll say going on, probably 20 some years ago, they kind of just like pushed them all into that Kensington Center, that space. You know what I mean? And it just got overrun with poverty, drugs, and crime, and like all kinds of crazy stuff. Like, they were just kind of pushed into that space and then cut off. There's no resources. Like, see, that's what really grinds my gears. I will mention, I can get the link for you and send it to you. You can probably find it yourself. But at any time, you can go on YouTube and just punch in Kensington, and they have live cameras that actually watch.
Oh, wow.
You just see them all sprawled out, laid out, dipping, all, being all whacked out, like all kinds of stuff. The world's watching. That's all they're doing is watching, except for recent. So it's aggravating. Philadelphia got a new mayor, Mayor Parker. I forget her, Cheryl Parker, I think it is. Yeah, Democrat. She's going full Frank Rizzo on these people. Like, I shouldn't say full Frank Rizzo because she hasn't dropped a bomb yet, but her campaign promise was to clean Kensington up. and promised the resources, promised help, all these things. They had it scheduled at this time on this day. We're going to start sending resource officers in, start collecting information, start seeing what we can do. Yeah, saying a lot of the right things. Well, it wasn't resource officers that showed up. In fact, they were about an hour early, so people were caught off guard. Next thing you know, tents are getting ripped out. People are getting scattered all over the place, going to jail. We had a bunch of people detox and die in prison because they were just ripped off the streets and thrown in Kensington. Those are the resources.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's the help. You know, that's proof in the pudding for me. I had a conversation, you know, almost everybody I talk to on, you know, that's the one thing I get confronted on when I say Democrats and Republicans are the same. I see that state violence. I see them things. You guys might be blinded by all the nice words, lack of mean tweets and stuff like that, you know, and all the empty, fake things they do to show solidarity. You know what I mean? But like, I see that. I see homeless
Yeah.
people being ripped out their tents. I see people dying in jail that didn't have to be dead. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, that's a pure example of fascism to me. You know,
Mm-hmm.
fascist control, fascist. It's a fascist agenda they laid out, and you know, they did what they had to do to show that they're strong on crime. You know, tough on crime, and yada yada. And it's like same old. So yeah, I don't want to
And
focus. You know, I don't want to. You know, I'll sit here and talk till 10 o'clock tonight about Kensington. I have, you know, a soft spot in my heart. I've done a lot of mission work in Kensington, you know, and I've tried to help out there. You know, that's a tough place to have to be.
and this is the reality. I'm not there, but when I go to Nashville, that place is in Nashville. Almost every time I go to Nashville, because I'm south of Nashville. But when we go up to Nashville, we see this stuff all the time. And we could be getting Popeye's chicken or whatever it is. We could be going in a park, sightseeing, whatever. And you see the exact scene. You see someone with a grocery cart, obviously drugged up. They don't know where they are. I mean, this is like every time you go there, it's almost guaranteed
Mhm.
you see this. And this is
Right.
at any city in the country right
It's
now.
every city. I mean, because
It's
that, you know, the hope of any resources, that's where it's going to be at, you know, in a
mm-hmm,
big city.
mm-hmm.
You know, those are generally the places we're told could possibly be of help. You know what I
But
mean? So it's
but
generally
not
why you
o-
see them places.
but it's not even just and we know this, that it's not just an urban problem, it's a rural problem too. That's just like my wife is from a rural area. She talks about how bad the epidemic is, like the opioid epidemic in the rural areas. Like it's gotten bad, like it's not just
Oh,
the cities
yeah,
anymore.
that's no, not that. Yeah, them drugs. Yeah, they're running rampant. All that fentanyl and all that stuff. Yeah, it don't matter where you go, you're gonna see that.
So we're talking about, and I'm glad you clarified the because I think if I read you right, when you're using fascism and you have in your logo, you have anti-fascist all stars. You're using it. It seems like it's a modernized, like it's like applicable like today, because I see a lot of people, and not trying to throw anybody on the bus, but people have made comments in the past on this particular program that I completely disagree with. And it's like they're always trying to equate it to like an earlier point. And I don't
Right,
think you can do that. It's like the reality is this: we're not 1930s Italy. I don't know why people keep bringing this
right,
stuff up. Like we're 2024 United States. We have
right.
fascism now, but we need
It's
to
here.
stick it to that context instead of why do we have to always keep going back to like 100 some years ago and say, oh, this is, I think that's just a political hit job personally.
It's
When they
absolutely
tried,
by design. That's
yeah.
absolutely by design. You know, yeah, it's here. We're staring straight down the barrel of fascism's gun, and we're encouraging it. You know, I mean, it's wow. How do we not
And
learn from history?
but how do we I guess I don't even know if it's the terminology anymore. And next week, I'm going to try to get some clarity from, because the guys from the Midwestern Marx Institute are coming back on. And I have a lot of questions for them because I just still can't get quite around the theories aspect of it. And you alluded to it yourself in your Substack that theory is only as good as, like, the impoverished don't care about that. Like, I don't think most people care about, like, do you really believe that most people care about Marxist theory? I guess when
Right.
it comes to, like, if we're talking about like day to day, or people thinking in the back of their mind like Karl Marx, like when they're
No,
struggling to pay their
right.
bills, like that's kind of why I have issues with that kind of stuff, and I'm trying to understand like what's the value, I guess. How can reading about that stuff, how can that empower me to help other people out, I guess.
Right. So the way I see it is, well, first we have to learn the history and be aware of the history, right? That's how you stop history from repeating itself. Supposedly, that's what we're told, right? You know, but on top of that, I mean, at least for myself, I've been having a lot of fun learning about the last 100 years, what it's been like for the different movements and the different communities and stuff like that. So that's a lot of fun regardless, you know but you gotta learn from that, and then from there kind of turned around. I kind of forget the question.
Like, how do we apply? Because
Right, the
like I'd be
theory.
100%. Like I'm not. I don't want to say that I don't care about the theory, but I'm just like, I'm just trying to see like how does this fit into like the picture now, like
Right.
2024.
So yes, that's right. That's what I was trying to get at. So it's like, yeah, up front on the battle lines, theory means nothing. We're out there feeding people. We're out there clothing people. They got blankets. They got shoes. They got socks. Here's a sandwich, whatever. Ain't there's no room for theory there. But you know, somewhere in the world, somebody's got to be coming up with the practical applications we'll use to make this a better world. You know what I mean? So, and that starts with theory. It's a balance. You know what I mean? It falls into that intersectionality. It's like, I've always been, kind of a front lines guy. My hands in the dirt. I'm very labor oriented. That's my strength. Somebody else's strength might be in the classroom talking about Marx and debating people and, coming up with the theories that are going to lead us into the future. When that happens, these movements and these theories find each other, especially when it comes to students and,
Mm-hmm.
just the impact they have on any challenge they accept, really, because students don't play. You know what I mean? You get students riled up, the world's going to know about it. It's been that way since we've had institutions. Yes, up front, theory don't mean nothing. If where we're at right now, for guys like me, from what it sounds like you're saying, guys like you, like theory ain't going to do us a whole lot of good with what we're trying to do. We can, when we get the opportunities, we should learn. You know what I mean? Take it in. We don't know what we don't know. There's a practical application for that theory. Let's do it. If, there's things that need to be done to find out if it's something that can be applied to a movement or daily life, let's find out. It's a journey we're on. There's no straight line. There's no one thing you or me are going to think of right now to it's going to make everything okay. We know the basics of what needs to happen. Most people do. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So in the meantime, you just need that woven tapestry, right? Growing up, like your grandparents had one of them, nice blankets that were all woven, handmade, woven together. Got all these single strands that are pulled together, even though they're running different directions and crossing over each other, crossing paths, or this one might miss this one, but it meets up with it over here. That's the movement that's going to save the world. You know what I mean? The one that can be born within that intersectionality, find a way to incorporate all the mindsets, all the thoughts, all the actions you know, and make the best of people's strengths and empower them and teach them. And just, we got to lift our people up. The only way it's ever going to happen. That intersectionality is going to be crucial to the future of these things. And that's going to take a lot of acceptance. And that's going to be a challenge. We got to challenge ourselves to be open to that, you know, because we know, we know that like this thing ain't right. No, it's got to be fixed right now. You know what I mean? And like, you know, some people say, hey, you got to play the game, you know, to get where you want to get. And other people are like, no, we got to tear this thing down, you know, to the foundation and rebuild up, you know, and depending on the minute or the day, either one of those things could be right. From day to day, it's the nuances are going to change.
You talk a lot about, and you posed this question when I interviewed Cornel West about the anti-fascist movement, and if we're able to get him back on down the road, we would dedicate a lot of energy to that particular topic. But so when you say that, what exactly are we talking about when we say anti-fascism movement? Because I guess we would have to define, like, in your view, what is the fascism that you're combating? I guess would be my question.
Sure. Okay. So like, yes, I originally, so when I posed that question for you to ask Dr. West, I was like hoping to get some kind of answer, right? I think he tried, like I think it was sprung on him quick. I think he was a little thrown off. I remember watching it. But so once that interview was over, I was like, and then you would start mentioning, like, you were like, oh, I want to get you on the show too, yada yada. And I was like, well, damn, now I gotta go down this rabbit hole, right? You know what I mean? Like, I gotta try to learn about this and see what I can come up with, right? See what I can offer to this conversation. For me, you know, fascism has always started with this kind of corporate rule, really. Like, you know, it's a corporate nationalist mindset that, you know, has dominated, especially this country, for a long, long time. And it's starting to fester out into the rest of the world. In some places it's succeeding, in other places it isn't. You know what I mean? To great success it isn't. You know, France. Look what France just they stood up and were like, absolutely not. You know what I mean? And they're out there, they still drag guillotines out into the middle of the street. They're like, we're not doing this. I have great appreciation for all that. You know what I mean? So like, I think for me, the idea of fighting fascism starts with fighting corporate nationalism. Does that make sense?
Corporate nationalism.
Yes.
So when you say corporate nationalism, I've never heard that term before.
Really? Well, you
corporate
have. I think you have. I've heard you use it. So I say the corpocracy. And I've heard you use
gotcha. Okay, that makes more sense. Corporate.
So it's that, you know, it's that corpocracy, that corporate entity that rules over us. You know, their system is a fascist system. How they're going about with the tool they're using to get their way is fascism. That's how I would define it. If you can look at that, if you can pinpoint what that looks like, and it's going to probably look different to me than it does to you, right? So, you know, but you can see that corporate nationalistic cloud that's hanging over the whole country. You know, we all pretty much are resigned to the fact that corporations dominate our financial landscape. I mean, they're not even companies anymore, they're empires. You know, and they got such reach that, you know, they're sitting in the White House with the president. You know what I mean? They're having golf with congressmen and, you know, making them backdoor deals on what they're going to do with us. They know that at the end of the day, it's going to take a lot of damaging stuff. They're going to have to do a lot of damaging things to make things as profitable as possible for them.
I get so disturbed, man, when like we as everyday people or just these labels get put on people, man. It's really the most crazy thing I've ever seen. Um, and even before I finally like got out of the shadows of just all this hypocrisy and apathy and everything else, because we all come from different experiences and we enter like the political avenues in different ways. But even when I was like the most gullible person ever, I'd say I always felt like I could talk to like oppositional like opinions. It wasn't like I was just stuck in my bubble. But it's like now, and you talked about echo chambers a lot, like we have to avoid the echo chambers. But that's easier said than done because I see so many people applying the corporate fascism structure to everyday people. And that's the
Right,
biggest critique I have of liberals, especially because I see them doing this to a lot of Trump people and people who they call far right or whatever. I'm like, so you're applying like a label to an entire group of people without
right, yeah,
any
yeah,
kind of
that's
like what's the evidence of what you're even saying? I mean, you're basically just calling them a name.
right.
If you actually examine it, it's like what is even the difference? Because it kind of brings me to this question because you said it yourself in a part you talked about the moderates and the authoritarians. Where's the line between those two? Because you mentioned that the moderates and the authoritarians, like, aren't the moderates pretty much just the enablers of the authoritarians? I mean, I don't.
That's what it turns out to be, right? We're told one thing, but at the end of the line, they rely on each other to just play this yo-yo game,
Yeah,
knocking it
yeah.
all back and forth to keep it the same, or
Mm-hmm.
progress it to, a higher level, whatever's going to be more profitable.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So yeah, and I think that is nonsense. I mean, if I think about a lot of, the demonstrations I've been a part of, or protests I've participated in, I think it is very easy. When you see somebody that supports
Mm-hmm.
fascism, it's like, well, you're a fascist. Like, there's a difference between a fascist and a fascist dictator. I think this country, if you look at how it spent the last, especially the last 100 years, and you look at how society has been created, it's almost been built on the idea that we are all these individual. It's like we're kings, right? Like we're kings of our own little thing. That was the
Mm.
promise of America, right? Like, we have control, we have a say, we have our land, we have our space, whatever. And that was supposed to be what it was. You know what I mean? And as you progress further, closer into history and more towards today, you know what I mean? That shifted from, a national mindset to more of a corporate mindset. You know what I mean? And it's like we accept this second level of moderation between us and our elected officials.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like they try to place themselves right in the middle of all that. Well, and they successfully have. There's so much of our lives are tied directly through our work. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Right. So, you know, when you take So if I'm looking at somebody, I'm at some kind of demonstration and there's a guy over there, wearing a MAGA shirt, saying Trump's great and all that. I'm kind of all right with saying, you know what? He's probably a fascist piece of shit. You know what I mean? Because given the opportunity, he'd probably do worse, in a lot of regards. But what I will say, it's my experience that when you're actually able to calm one of these MAGA people down, just calm down, hold on, let's talk about this. Eventually, they've all been open to suggestion. Like
Mm-hmm.
when I say, you know, we need Medicare for all or something like that, or whatever kind of healthcare plan that's going to look like, on a national level, they say, well, who's going to pay for it? It's always the first thing. Well, who's going to pay
First
for it?
question.
And, without, I can rip that apart all day long, but, at the end of the day, like, if you look at things like, well, if you look at our whole budget as a whole, we all are aware of pork and beans and all these, things, all these laws that get written up, all these things, there's money all across the board that's not being used right, not being used at all. You got bloated parts of the, shit, our military, man. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like,
gosh.
you're not going to tell me you could, you can't take a nice chunk from that and at least give it to vets or something and beef up the VA and stuff like this. And when you start talking like that, like, there is money there. It just needs to be, better budgeted. Like, we're always told, oh, you're poor because you don't know how to budget your money. Like, we're watching the people in our state legislature mess money up. They're not balancing this shit in any way that's going to help people. They're doing it to increase profits and increase production and all these things that's going to drive the idea of, that human, what do they call it? Like human cattle or something like that, where we're just this product. That's where the heart of corporate fascism lies. That's where it lives. And that, maintaining that ideology that you're a product, you're to do something, for my benefit. You're to sacrifice for the greater good of the company, and stuff like that, under the delusion of trickle down bull snot, you know what I mean? Like, and we still apply, we still sign the paper, say, yeah, I guess, come on, let's go. I got, kids to feed. You know what I mean? Like, and, they got that stranglehold.
And I was talking about my experience at Walmart because my mom, she recently got a cancer diagnosis, and so she left Walmart. And so at the time I was unemployed, and she said, until you find something else or whatever, why didn't you come work with me at night? And I said, why not? How many chances am I going to get to work with my own mom? And she moved down, towards where me and my wife and kids are. And I was working with her for about 4 or 5 months, before she got cancer. And once she left, it started to make me think about the working conditions at the Walmart that we were at. And there's almost 6,000 locations. None of them have unions.
Right.
And it's by design. But I almost wanted to call it like an infiltration operation. That's the way I kind of view myself. I was like, dude, I'm a fucking infiltrator. I'm going to get all the information I can through the meetings. I had like a notebook, and they were like, why are you taking notes on a Walmart meeting? It's just routine business. We go out and we put the shit on the shelves after we have the meeting. But little did they know I was doing something else. Like, I got all these ideas and stuff. And I had talked to a couple of the coworkers out there when I was still working out there, and they said, man, what you're trying to do, they've been trying to do this for years out here. They tried to get so many people to get it. The management is not going to go on board with your message. You're going to get fired if you try to do something like that. That's all I heard the whole time I was out there, is that they're going to fire you, man, if you try to do something like what you're trying to do. And I was like, I don't give a shit, man, about Walmart, man. This isn't my career path. I was like, but I'm going to see what I can do while I'm still here and just get more information about it. Long story short, man, the resistance is crazy. When you talk about corporate America and the stuff that we're talking about with labor movements and stuff, you mentioned how, what was the organization? What was the company you mentioned again, where the workers were able to negotiate a good deal? It was 5 days. You said September the 30th, and then October the 3rd.
Oh, that was just this year. That was just this year. That was just like,
right.
Yeah, that was just a couple months. Who was that? So that was the
ILA,
What do they call themselves? The Longshoresmen. It's
the
like the
Longshoresmen.
International
Yeah.
Longshoresmen, something like that. Can't remember
Mm-hmm.
off the top of my head, but yes, they. I mean, anybody that followed it, like it was one of them things. They were close to having people worried about toilet paper again. Because, like, these are our docks you're talking about, the major ports up and down the East Coast, across the Gulf Coast. Like, it was virtually from Texas to Florida and from Florida up to Maine, like 36 ports were willing to shut down. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And, like, you got to think about that, Like, I know for myself, it took me a few days of really like giving it thought, reading up on other labor movements that, throughout time and stuff like that to really appreciate not just the gravity of it, you know what I mean, but their ability to really kind of stomp a hole in it and get it done and over with because like it's a really good example of it, they showed their corporate entities who's really in control. Corporates didn't go down swinging. You know what I mean? They went down swinging like they didn't give in to everything right away, but you know they did agree to the wage increases and stuff. They're gonna you know talk about dialing back on automation. A lot of things they were really like hammering home, and that's such a beautiful thing. But they were in a unique position that not all workers are in, regardless of how much value they create for the people they work for. You know what I mean? Like there's always 9 out of 10 times there's someone chopping at your bit, ready to take your spot. You know what I mean? Or they can make a phone call and get somebody in there before you're done putting your coat on. It's a challenge depending on where you at. Like you said, you had with Walmart, like they were telling you even try talking about this, they're going to get rid of you. Like I said, up here in Pennsylvania, it's an at-will state, which is
Mm-hmm.
essentially that's state union busting at almost its highest level in the state. You know what I mean? Like, they make it seem, they dress it up like, oh, oh, workers used to be bound to this and bound to that. And now you have certain freedoms and stuff. But, like, you know, it's not what it is. It's a control mechanism to let you know, if you cross this line, you will be in trouble. You will lose your job. We're allowed to take without for no reason. You know,
Absolutely.
I mean,
And
I'll even say
And
real
Tennessee's
quick,
in this situation too. Yeah.
I could probably get in trouble for saying this, but so like at my work, we're in the process of doing a risk assessment for our community that I work in. Right, tornadoes, hurricanes, what's stuff like that. What's the potential? Are you ready? Yada yada. And as we got towards the end of it, one of their concerns was, are we prepared for a strike and what are the odds of that? I generally don't go in on my executive director. You know what I mean? Like all the time. Like, you know what I mean? There's a couple people I'll let know how I feel about these things, but like we all know where we're at. That's extremely, extremely unlikely. You know what I mean? So within my whole corporate structure of where I work, they own senior living communities across the country. So there have been rumblings in states like New York of buildings starting unionizing talks. But, no, I'm not safe. Like my job wouldn't be safe if I tried to start that. You know what I mean? So I generally don't, you know. So that's an example of that, that can of just how deep that corporate hand is in the state level, at the federal level, you know. So having that power to make these capitalists you know, stop dead in their tracks and say, you know, we have no choice but to find a way to work with you is a rare and amazing thing for labor movements around the world. You know, it's an accomplishment that other labor movements will continue to build on, you know.
And so I'm going to read something. I'm going to share something from your Substack. And I'm going to link all your information at the end of the episode description. But this is from Anthony Simpson's Substack. The title of this Substack is Civil Agitation and a Nonviolent Revolutionaries Manifesto. And the part that he was referring to earlier, I'm going to read a paragraph or two. And then if you want to respond, you can. But it's basically what you were saying before about the recent port strikes. This is like very fresh off the presses. Recently, the world has had the opportunity to witness great successes for workers' coalitions and unions. Most recently, we got to experience a collective movement so strong that it could potentially affect as many as 36 ports across the Gulf Coast and up the eastern seaboard from Maine to Texas. You alluded to that. A seemingly small number in historical context, 47,000 people to live the thunderous strike, both literally and figuratively, for the advancement of workers' rights and the movements that support them. At midnight on September 30th, 2024, following the expiration of their contract, workers with the International Longshoremen's Association, the ILA, International Longshoremen's Association, began a strike advocating for a broad range of issues, from compensation to the banning of automation in the industry. On October the 3rd, just 5 days later, the crushing weight of the power of the worker outpowered the powers that be and agreed to a 61.5% wage increase over 6 years and allowing until January the 15th, 2025 to iron out the rest of the contract. Workers went back to their posts, not just winners, but examples for all the pro-workers movements in action now and in the future. And that's the
And
big
that's how we
example.
got to look at these things.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we got to look
Absolutely.
at these things. We got, when we see workers win, we should have been, you know, there should have been a parade down Broad Street out here. You know what I mean? Like the Eagles won the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
that's the kind of win that is. You know what I mean? Like we don't see that very often. You know, especially in Philadelphia. So,
And
so
and how did that news did that get any press coverage whatsoever?
yes. Yes, it was getting a lot of coverage, I believe. Like, so I generally stay away from mainstream media, but the community that I work in, senior living facility, everybody got their TVs on. We have, TVs out in the lobbies and stuff that run stuff. So we sit, and it's always, I even had a couple of residents ask me, like, oh, is this going to affect us? You know what I mean? Like, because like I said, they were worried, like, oh, I don't want to run out of toilet paper again. Like, that's not generally going to happen to a facility like ours, but it's, there was more, there were people that were engaged in, what I guess you would call it, what's the phrase? Just, the world happenings, you know what I mean? Knew what was going on. I don't know, it affected people differently. I think most people were just worried about the impact it would have on them, not really considering much else. Okay, cool, they're back to work, great, and just go, you know. But like I said, in my mind, like, it should have been parties across the country celebrating them workers.
Someone who's usually not into like the big happenings of the day sent me a TikTok, and I was so against the idea of TikTok earlier, like in the inception of this program. And I was like, you know what? I don't give a shit about TikTok. I'm not gonna. I have this I guess it's the Gen X in me that mentality is just like, man, I don't need this or whatever. All this social media engagement. I mean, because I'm getting headwinds and I'm giving great quality information. People are liking the show and stuff. But my wife kept saying, you need to get on TikTok because this thing is going to go to the next level if you get on TikTok and just clip out your videos and put them on TikTok.
I
And I
think
was
I
like,
seen that.
what? Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And I was like, whatever. I don't, I was like, don't nobody want to hear about no damn politics on TikTok. This is the way I'm thinking now.
Hmm.
This is about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
And then I started recently. I was like, man, let me rethink what she was trying to tell me. And so I revisited the TikTok angle. And man, there are way more politically engaged people in there than I realized. And they're talking about issues just like this. And
Okay.
and the irony behind it is that my wife and I don't talk about politics a whole lot because I think like we're both on the same page as far as like this system is like bullshit, like the two-part system is terrible. But we really don't talk about issues themselves because we have a lot of people in the family that have different, like such strong points of view, and we're not trying to like stress out before we go to bed discussing
Right.
arguing about politics. But
Mhm.
she sent me something through TikTok about the port strike. And then after
Okay.
that, she sent me an Instagram post about this same port strike. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I'm thinking 5, 6 years ago, she would have never sent anything like that to me.
Right.
But it's showing that something's happening. And that's
Right.
just in my household. But people are starting to care more about those issues. Like, these things are becoming more impactful to people.
Like, and that younger generation, you know, like, the kids coming out at, 17, 18, and them, like, they are more engaged in these conversations because they're injected into the conversations all over the country. Educators are being attacked, various, ways with all kinds of, they're teaching them this and that, liberal indoctrination, blah, blah, blah. And then, like all the different kinds of, like, we had a thing out here, like, I don't, there was like a gender neutral bathroom in one of the, not, you know, in a bathroom, in a gender neutral bathroom in a school. They put a window in the wall so you could look into this bathroom from the hallway for their protection. You know what I mean? Like, and like I was sick to my stomach. I was like thinking, like we got this hardcore governor right now. You know what I mean? That's all like, he's Democrat and all that, and like, rah rah and all over the place about all kinds of things he thinks he's doing and stuff like that. And I'm like, why ain't you over there ripping that window out the wall? You know what I mean? Like, with your bare hands. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like, and a couple days later, it was boarded up after it got enough press and stuff like that. Because they were like, oh, we're worried about, things that, if it's something that's happening in all them bathrooms, like, why ain't all the bathrooms getting windows? You know what I mean? Like, why is it just that bathroom? You know what I mean? So like after a while, it was boarded up, a couple days. I don't think it lasted long, but like, you know, students are getting injected into these world politics. You know what I mean? That
Mm-hmm.
the national level. So they have no choice but to engage. Other kids, people running up in these schools, shooting people. Like, it's all over the news. And more media outlets. Not just mainstream media, but outlets like yours are reaching out to these, younger generational kids, and they're responding. They had a whole thing not that long back where TikTok like caused a big ruckus, and you know what I mean? Like, these kids are engaged in political stuff. So it doesn't surprise me at all that you're finding success through that avenue, or at least engagement. You know what I mean? Because it's like, yeah, they know what's not just affecting them now. These kids are smart as hell, and they know what their future is going to look like. So it's not surprising at all.
And that's, you know what, and it's great to just maybe there is some potential in the social media optimization, but at the same time, I know you said you had watched a little bit of the previous episode 138 with Theus Marlon Tracy, and we
Yes.
talked a little bit about he kept saying, you know, and I disagree because Theus, you know, we obviously have a lot of different opinions, but it was an interesting conversation because he kept talking about the tools. We already have the tools, and I'm just like, but to what extent do we have control of the tools? You know, it's easy to say that we have tools, but we're at the mercy of the social media companies. I mean, this is really the likelihood of the show is has been optimized through Google, through YouTube. Like the point I was making is that YouTube is owned by Google, so we're still at the mercy of these companies. They could shut me down tomorrow if they wanted to,
They can, but they haven't,
right?
right? But I get what you're saying, because, like, so it's like, let's look at Black Lives Matter. You know what I mean? It started with a hashtag, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just like blew up across the world, you know? Um, that was absolutely a movement that had, well, first of all, it was given, the movement was given many faces, you know, because of what happened to them. But it was one of them movements that, if it had a face, that, a singular face, that, like everybody said, like, who was it, George, George Soros or something was in control of,
George
you
Soros
know
was Open Society.
he was like in control of the Black Lives Matter and all that. It's like, but if there was like a real face to that thing, he would have been taken out. You know what I mean? Like, they would have
Mm.
tried to silence that, that figure. If it had a face like a Martin Luther King or a Malcolm X, somebody that was,
Mm-hmm.
the leader of that movement, it would have been taken out. But they couldn't really take out. There was nothing there to take out because it was a hashtag. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? That that millions, probably billions of people across the world were shouting. How do you silence that? Yes, they can take the internet away from us. You know what I mean? But, you know, we've seen it in TV already. You're always going to have that, like, techno science guy in the desert turning a freaking gas can into some kind of transmitter. You know what I mean? Like there were people innovate, when it's just going to be another obstacle. You know what I mean? But it's like, yeah, you know, until they take it away, you know, I would say use it. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's not for everybody. Like, there's people that have the aptitude for it, and there's people that don't. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? But just because they don't have the aptitude for that, you know, doesn't mean, I'm a carpenter by trade. You know what I mean? So I'm now stepping into this world that you're in, and, like, it's almost overwhelming, all the things I'm trying to learn, you know, just to put myself in your seat and say, hey, everybody, I'm here to start, sharing, this platform with you. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, it's two different aptitudes. I'm not good at this yet. You know what I mean? But if you need something, help with your house, I got you. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Very efficiently. You know what I mean? Let's get this done. You know what I mean? So it's like, everybody's got their space that they got to fill. And we need to take advantage of that. You know, let people use their strengths.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And if all them combined strengths are aimed in the same direction, that's why, you know, I kind of, in a lot of my works, I've been using, the analogy of an arrow, with how I break down a lot of these things, because, they're different functions, different parts, but they got to work together in one. And, when they shoot, they strike, and, they can cause some damage. Like, that's the, and that's how it's got to be, you know. So
Something you're
these
saying, it goes into what, and I don't know if you've the People's Party of Texas, which is so cool. They're actually going to be on, because you're going to be a part of the November the 5th election night coverage. And some of them are going to be on the same telecast with us, which is awesome, because Athena was talking about this idea of horizontalism. And it sounds like that's what you're talking about. We don't need hierarchies. We need people. Some people are better at certain skills than others and certain functions. So why not look at it as a leader, but everyone's a leader in their own
That's
way?
it. I mean, so for me,
Yeah.
that's a successful movement that outlasts a person is going to have to be that. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like, we're always going to want people that are, you know, um, most recently, like
Dr.
Cornell
Rasmus?
West,
Cornell West.
right? Like, man, we're always going to need somebody like that knows how to bring people, knows how to sit down, bring people together, have a voice that transcends, a message that transcends, kind of like, somebody that can reach more than just the people in front of us. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We're always going to need that kind of person, but we can't hang our hat on that individual. You know what I mean? And, just like that hashtag, you know what I mean? Like, that hashtag's going to be around forever. You know what I mean? Like, so there's always going to be a platform, and the person that fully takes advantage of that platform and finds, the next level of greatest success with that platform may not even have been born yet. You know what I mean? But it's such a continual generational work that it's been. There's no reason to believe that we might not have to stay prepared for it to be so. As much as we want and need radical change, it's why we should be celebrating the successes of these longshoresmen like we celebrate a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like, there's still generational work to be done. And the only way a generational work like that can be done is if the message transcends the person. You know what I mean? You can't take that out. They would have to shut down the internet. Are they ready to do that? Are they ready to give up that much marketing?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like,
That's very interesting. So, okay, this conversation just took a huge turn. It really did, because I had some questions. Just, we were flowing good as it was, and then I'm like, damn, we keep on flowing so good, the synergy. And I was just thinking what we're talking about, and I keep bringing my dad up into this. I think I brought him up twice already, because I'm actually interviewing my dad and my first
I
cousin
see.
this weekend.
I seen I think I seen at least one of the the interviews you did with your dad.
Yeah, that's the only one we've done so far, but we're about to do
Okay.
another one this weekend.
Okay. That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
And he brought up a point about, because he said something. He was done in jest, because he knows me, and he was basically saying with confidence, your thing is going to grow. This was like 2 years ago when I was even throwing out the idea of Kiko's Freethinkers Forum, and just I had done a few episodes and wasn't sure exactly like how the reception was going to be. It was very small, like it was a baby. And he said, man, once you get big, you're gonna, and I say, if I get big, will I take debate? Because I think that's the question, because he always talks about capitalism. That's the system. The motivation is the money here. Like, people say that it isn't, but it obviously has something to do with it.
We have no
And
choice.
we don't, it's almost like we don't have a choice, because you said, I mean, everything's tied to our work and everything else. And they set a price on something, honestly, that, like, how some of this stuff that we do, you can't really put a price on it. Not,
Right.
and we're never going to get the work that we actually supposed to get. because it's always like it's an exploitative system
Right.
inherently, because those people are getting like 1,000, 10,000 times what they're supposed to be getting, and
Mm-hmm.
they're not even doing the work. We're doing the work.
Right.
And but he talks about how these platforms, he thinks a lot of them are bullshit, honestly. He thinks that and he probably won't agree with this, but he's told me this, that a lot of these YouTube channels are bullshit because as soon as they get big, it's like they change everything up. And once they get that money, that's it. It's like you can, he says you can buy out anybody. And I wish I could go against that line of thought. But I believe that there is somebody in some groups of people. I don't think that some people can be bought off. I think the
So
majority are bought off, but I don't want to be in a situation where any amount of money, like I don't give it, like I don't want money to be the reason why I'm doing this.
so I'll say this, right?
Okay.
So I said, like, I think exactly what you're talking about. Like, um, with you personally, like, I see how genuine you are with your message and how you carry yourself and how you've expressed that. And I think you've always expressed that what you just said. You know what I mean? And, you know, that's one of the biggest things I appreciate about your platform. And it's because it's no secret that there's a whole plethora of people out there taking it, utilizing these ideas, these platforms, these, messages that we talk purely for gain. No
Mm-hmm.
real context, no real desire, just, you know, running around, filming themselves, giving people food and stuff like that. It's like, a lot of disingenuous stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, there's balance there, right? Like, maybe that guy needed that meal, even though, like, he was kind of just, put in a position that might have shamed him or, made him embarrassed or something like that. You know what I mean? But, like, probably got a decent meal there, like, might have needed that. But it's like, you know, same thing. Like, it's kind of like, it's been hard for me to identify, you know, genuine workers through social media, like on platforms like this. Like, are they really about what they're talking about? You know what I mean? And the biggest thing that's attracted to me to your platform is the fact that, like, I believe that, like, you're really on this mission. You know what I mean? So it's like a balance there. Like, yes, there is so much bullshit out there. You know what I mean? There's so much that it's hard to find the ones that aren't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, the ones that aren't, not sometimes, always, like, they're the ones most important to identify and encourage. You know what I mean? Because it goes back to that thing before. Like, they might have this strong message, they might be trying real hard. You know what I mean? And not really getting traction, not really getting engagement. You know what I mean? Not really getting feedback and feeling lost, feeling on an island and yada yada. It goes back to what we were, talking about earlier, like with the intersectionality of it, how it's like, there might be one person that they reach eventually. You know what I mean? That's like, man, I'm not hearing anybody else say these things. Oh, and I like that it's a small, you know, podcast. It's not coming off as this mainstream thing. Like, you know what I mean? And that's all it takes. And you've had probably as strong as an effect you're going to have on this world, right? Like, that's, you know, it's a beautiful thing, you know? So, we all feel like we're on this island at times. With writing all these substacks, like, literally, this is like the first real, like critiques I've had of them, like somebody, like got any kind of feedback, like I thought it was kind of funny, when I, when I, the very first one I wrote, that manifesto, um,
Uh-huh.
I asked you to take a look at it, and you kind of kind of gave me like the Professor Kiko treatment. Like I kind
Yeah.
of got the red checks, and I was like, oh shit, he just like, I was really hoping for like some feedback, like, and I haven't really got, it's like, so this is the first feedback I've gotten from that work, and it's like, so you know, it takes patience and all that stuff. You know what I mean? And you know. But I know, and I'm learning through all this stuff I'm exploring, that like I'm on an island, yes, but like I'm connected to so much other movements that you can trace my steps, you know, back 100 years. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it's our responsibility to put the next set of tracks in the dirt. You know what I mean? For the
Mm-hmm.
next guy to come across. And that's kind of just like really the only way it's going to go, because we're hell bent on this slow bus mentality.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, you're right. I do have a mission. Um, I think the people who follow the show very closely know that, but that's part of the mystique. It's like no one knows what's going to be on the next episode. Like sometimes I don't always announce what's going to be on next. Sometimes I don't even know myself. I might get a thought 3 in the morning. I'm just like, you know what? I need to reach out to this person and get them on. I need to reach out to this person. There's no sort of there's no pre-planned sort of agenda. It's just simply these are my thoughts. This is what I think needs to happen. These are the people that need to be connected. I mean, I've tried to get, and people ask, like, man, like, why would you reach out to someone like Donald Trump to get on your show? Like, why, first of all, why would you think that someone like that would come on your show? And I'm like, you never know till you try.
Exactly.
You all you can get is a yes or a no answer. It
Right.
doesn't, people are so worried about assuming what somebody's going to do. I mean, and to get any response is a positive to me. I mean, some of the people, man, that have not coming, like RFK. I mean, I don't care for his politics, but his team at least said we just don't have any availability right now for you or whatever, and I can respect that. Um, but me just not trying to do anything at all about it. Like I can't do that anymore. And I guess the point I'm getting at is that I don't know if the mission will get accomplished, but I'm going to definitely try all I can to get this mission accomplished.
That's why,
And
like, you're like, that's why you gotta look at that mission as like just like planting that seed. You know what I mean? Planting that seed, like it's a tree that's gonna grow that you might never get to sit under. But how long is that tree gonna be there? You know what I mean? How many people are gonna get to sit under it? You know what I mean? How many people are gonna benefit from it? You know what I mean? And like I think, that's the strongest mindset to have, as far as, looking at the ultimate success down the road of what it is you're trying to accomplish. You know what I mean? Because your work here that you're doing now is going to outlast you. You
mm-hmm.
know what I mean? So what can you do to make the most of that? You know what I mean? And get as strong as a message as possible out that helps elevate that mission. You know what I mean? And you're doing great, bro. Yeah, I
I
mean, and I'm
appreciate
having,
I
I'm
appreciate it.
having, I'm having fun, engaging with the various videos that you put out. You know what I mean? Like, and getting this opportunity today to, talk with you. And in November, we'll be hanging out again. And, I hope we get to, just like keep mixing it up, crossing paths, and, like, best we can, I don't want to take you off your thing, you don't want to take me off my thing, like, but, there's going to be lots of opportunity for us to grow together, and especially with a lot of the people you've been working with and people I hope to work with. And it's a network.
And
We're
see,
building.
and this is the thing about the network, though. So this is kind of where I was getting at, man. There's just so much I got going on in my head. But that's kind of where and I talked to Amir about this. Amir is going to also be on that show with us on Tuesday night, November the 5th. Amira Napier, who's a Palestinian American, and she's been on the show like probably 3 different times. And
I think I
we were
seen
talking
one of
about,
hers too.
I know you follow
Early
it
on,
closely.
hers might have been one of the first ones I watched, actually.
So Anthony, just for the audience to know, Anthony, like I was so like amazed when I had all the different people on the show just running for president. A lot of them are still in the field, some of them aren't. But Anthony posted on his Voices of Poverty Facebook page, he gave a critique of all the candidates that I had on the show. Like these were like serious critiques, not just, oh, I like this person, I didn't like this person. Like these were legitimate critiques of their policies and everything, just the way that they would connect with the people. And I was like, man, this stuff is like, and you're not the only one that does stuff like this. It's crazy. And then it's like you got 5, 10, 15 people doing that. And I'm like, damn, this thing has got some kind of momentum. It's like something's going on. You can see it. It's
And I
not
can
just
tell you,
it's there.
and I remember that post, and hundreds of thousands of people have seen that post. You know what I mean? So, like, maybe half of them actually read it. You know what I mean? And at least know that that world's possible and that those options tried to be there for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's our fault they're not there. It's not 100% our fault, but, we're not doing our part, and mainstream media is doing their part. So,
Yeah.
so, we're not,
But
so
but
like,
but that was something I was getting at is that the independent media space, I can't control what other people do on their platforms, but it seems like that because I've had people come on and they say they try to go on certain podcasts, like just running for office. You would think that some of these podcasters would want to have anybody that they could get who's willing to come on their show, especially run for public office.
right.
And the resistance by a lot of these so-called independent media is crazy. And that's why, like I said, I shoot it to people straight. Like if people ask me, like, hey, why don't you fuck with Jimmy Dore? Because people have done this before, And I just tell them because I see a pattern with Jimmy Dore. I don't know this guy personally, but I'm not a dummy either. Like I see a pattern, and it's clear that he's basically like in a space in this atmosphere where he has a certain amount of hegemony. He has some power, and certain YouTubers feel like they have to gravitate to that hegemony to even be relevant. And I've
Mm-hmm.
seen it just develop. And I was telling you before we had this second follow up, from earlier today when we were talking, that's the reason why I'm reluctant to join a larger network of people because I see exactly what's happening with independent media. It's like they break off into sections, and I'm not trying to do that. There's no reason why if people are genuine with their message and their cause, there's no reason why all of us can't contribute to the cause.
Right.
If you're fragmenting that is because you're allowing something else to get in between that cause, or maybe it wasn't a cause that was really genuine to begin with. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I've seen it happen
I
too many
mean,
times
it's
where
give
that
and take. I
happens.
mean, it's give and take. People, get desperate, and if you're
Yeah.
offered the right kind of money, people are going to be like, "All right, let's do this." You can't fault them 100% all the time. You know what I mean? Depending on what's going on, maybe it is a lot of fun. Even though it's kind of not really, you know, uh, contributing to much. But it's whatever. You're definitely the type of dude that's like, I would say, until you actually get a phone call from somebody in a position of influence or power that says, "Hey, I believe in what you're doing, and you know, we can do it this way, and you can have control over what you need to have control over." You know, I don't see no reason for you to worry, but even think about, you know, working with people like that, just for the simple fact that, like, you're growing. You know what I mean? Yes, they can probably propel you more, but like you said, what are you going to have to, sacrifice? It's like, then, do you want to sacrifice that? Like, I think, for myself, I think when you're putting yourself in a position like this, you kind of got to own your shit. You know what I mean? So you want to be in a position to do that, and not worry about who's going to say what, you know? Exactly. People going, you need that space for yourself anyway. You know what I mean? Like, just so the world will always know this is who I am, you know? This is how we get down, and this is what we're doing over here. And I think everybody sees your platform growing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're growing, bro. It's a beautiful thing, and you're in control of it.
I'm
I was
growing,
trying
but
to wanted to get ahead of you.
I'm growing. I feel like I'm in a vacuum growing, which is totally fine. And I know that it's not realistic that there's not going to be like friction and resistance, because I already, like, I can feel it. Like, you feel, and it's like you wonder, are you holding yourself back by worrying so much about the friction because you know it's around the corner? Because I know that bigger accounts are following me in secret. Like, I know this for a fact. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, but I don't necessarily know if I want to engage with those particular channels. That's the thing about it. That's kind of where we're at now with social media. Um, because what I'm doing is traditionally something that is probably more. I won't say there's more effective person to person, door to door, when we talk about organizing and the whole structure of organizing. But the reality is that we can reach way more people this way quicker. We can reach people very effectively this way if it grows a certain type of way. And if the audience is willing to kind of, you know, understand the premise and kind of take the premise with it. And I think that that's what people are getting. They're definitely branching out and they're learning more about it. And I just don't want to ever be a personality conflict that causes me to disconnect with people that could be valuable down the road. That's kind of where
Right,
the dilemma comes in. Um,
right.
and I obviously, and even someone like Dor that I don't know, he's kind of like, that's too distant for me to even think about at this point. But I guess when I get to that point, then I can ask those questions. Okay, is a person like that, would they serve the interest of us? You know, like what we're trying to do, even if we do have this personality conflict. You know,
Right,
even if they are in it for money or whatever, they ain't got nothing to do with me. That don't mean that has to be my field, right?
right,
And because that person obviously has valuable people that have minds like we do too. It's just a matter of, I don't want to go to war with his crowd or their crowd, and that's what happens a lot of times, where I'm not trying to pit somebody else against another group, you know, and that's usually the case with a lot of these bigger accounts. Like, these people become like a devoted to their cult podcaster, and then it's like, why don't y'all think for yourselves though, right? Like, this motherfucker's not God, right? It's like he's a person at the end of the day. I don't want people to look at me like that. Like, I'm not some kind of a fucking leader. Like, I'm just the person. This is my platform, but it's really a platform for everybody. It's not like, oh, you have to listen to everything he says and like that's the truth. But it seems like that's what happens with a lot of these people. And it got kind of goes to what you were saying before. We don't have to have like a leader or a figurehead. Like when the Black Lives Matter started, it was decentralized. No one knew what the figurehead was, but that was kind of the point. It was decentralized.
right,
All these types of movements can be very effective. But the question is, you see this happening with these people, and people can't deny it. Like Jimmy Dore, some people in his audience is just like, if someone disagrees with Jimmy Dore, they're like, well, fuck you, man. It's like, I can't fuck with you because Jimmy's not saying that. You don't know what Jimmy's doing. And I'm like, I just don't want to get into a fight. You know what I mean? That's what bothers me. And I'm kind of reluctant, and I'm kind of getting the cat out of the bag right here. This is what I'm getting at. They want me to do a big debate in January. They want me to moderate a debate. And I'm still kind of on the fence if I even want to do this or not, because then I'm inviting two major audiences at the same time, but they want me to be the moderator because they think I would give them a fair moderation. But under the same token, I'm like, do I host this? It's going to be great pub for me, great publicity. But do I want them to argue about some bullshit for 2 hours and no one gets anything out of it? Because
Is
on my
that a
show, no one argues on my show. Like, we don't do that shit on here.
right? I mean, I've seen some pretty animated discussions on some of your things. You know what I mean? But yeah, arguing, I wouldn't call it arguing. You got, you set some great examples of, how conversations are supposed to go. How people with different thoughts can continue to talk with each other and, walk away amicably. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
These are two guys. If you're not going to be able to control the room, why be part of the circus? You know what I mean? Like, if they're going to, if you feel like they're going to respect, you know, the seat you're in and you can, get these guys through this debate, you know what I mean? Like I say, go for it. You know what I mean? Like if you, if they believe in you, you know what I mean? Like, obviously I think you can do it. You know what I mean? Like there's no reason you can't do it. Like, to it's a good, opportunity to, people are itching to see, a moderator control the room, to itching to see, the challenges that are presented, when someone's talking dumb shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we that's all people were waiting for now when we get debates on the TV now. It's like, all fact checking and like, why ain't they saying this and that back? And, you got JD Vance like, I thought we weren't getting fact checked. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a big part of the debate world now, right? Like the in real time fact checking. And if, you know, you can keep them honest and, keep it moving and, that's only, going to give you that, not only are you going to gain a great experience, you know what I mean? But, that's experience that you're going to grow off. That's going to get a lot of people's eyes, you know what I mean? Again, if it's going to be a shit show, you probably don't want to be a part of it. If they're going to be talking through you and, you're going, come on, guys, come on, hold up. Like, you don't want to be, spending half the night like,
Yeah, and see,
I'm not.
I haven't seen one example yet. Because I know all this, man. To me, that shit's like 3 years ago. I know that this was a thing during COVID. It seemed like this was like just really an explosion on like the YouTube left. Whatever the hell that is. I mean, what a
Right.
fucking joke. The YouTube left.
Okay.
But it's just like I saw all these debates. I'm just like, these motherfuckers are just arguing with each other. They're not getting at anything, man. They're never gonna like
Right.
what's the point of this? It's just like it's just a 2 hour podcast. That's all it is.
Right. I mean, and it's like, how can you really have an effect on that? Like, as a moderator, you're sitting there, you're in a position like, hey, this is a good opportunity, to get specific information about these people out to the people that, might want to know about these people. You know, how can you zero in on that? How can you, make sure keep them focused on that? How can you keep them away from each other essentially? Like, you almost got to put blinders on these people anymore. You know what I mean? Like, dangle a carrot in front of one of them or something for a while, like just so the other guy can talk. Like but if you can create that and give the people what these candidates probably aren't looking to give the people, that's an amazing accomplishment. Is it possible or not? I don't know, but it's probably 90% of a lot of what we talk about and a lot of what we're getting involved with is not very possible. So at least right away. So
Interesting.
like it's all a matter. Like I said, there's a lot to think about going into a situation like that. Like, because I don't want to see you set yourself up. You know what I mean? And just be like, because why waste your time if it's not going to be a legit thing? You know what I mean?
So I was thinking about when we were discussing the labor and the incentive of this capitalistic system, and we talked about the abuse of these companies towards its workers. And so my question to you is, do you believe that's the reason why certain social safety nets haven't been installed, like universal basic income, just to give one example? But do you think that the social safety nets aren't there precisely for this reason? Is this politicians covering for these major corporations? Is that the reason why we're not going to get a UBI, for instance? Is because if people do have social safety nets, it would empower workers, it would empower the people more, and they just can't afford to give us smidgen of that.
So they can afford it. They don't want to afford it. They work hand in hand. These governmental agencies and like corporations, they all work together hand in hand. They write laws together, all that kind of stuff. So like that's why the safety nets aren't in place. You figure mostly why, like most skilled jobs and all that kind of stuff, a lot of jobs being shipped overseas. Like we need factory workers. We need low wage workers. You know what I mean? And like they're getting very creative with that now. They're starting to farm out more prison work, and you know,
Mm,
you know, the phrase "dumbing down of America," is a phrase as old as time now. It seems. You know what I mean? Like because that's where they need us, as many as possible. And it's true. Dumb people are easily controlled and manipulated and, give in, like, so that's why these safety nets aren't there, because a healthy, educated, mentally well person is a threat to the system they've created for us. You know what I mean? Like it's that deep. It's not.
I did not forget about the whole when you talked about the voices of poverty, and you talked, and keep seeing that logo. I love the logo, by the way. Is that almost like a is that a Converse shoe? Is that what that is?
Oh, for my personal page or the
Yeah,
Voices of Poverty? Oh, so oh yeah, the Anti-Fascist All Stars. Is that the one you're talking about?
yeah.
Yeah, so that's for my person. Yeah, it's like some burn up chucks there. Yep. That's
Okay,
basically
so
what that's representing.
so I didn't. We talked about it a little bit, and I kind of set it up on purpose just to. We talked a little bit about the historical context of this word fascism and everything else. Why did you feel the need? And it isn't a critique, but I'm just simply there's a reason why you picked that word anti-fascism, and I'm wondering why. Um, what went into your thought process when you decided to use the word anti-fascism and combat it, like building an anti-fascism movement? Why not use another word? Was that the word that you felt was appropriate, um, given the context?
Sure, that's a good question. for me, it starts with the agitation. You know, you know, in today's polarized world, race-driven world, what can this white boy do to help? So, I'm here and, pretty, surrounded by other white people, and it's like, how can I make them face what they are, who they've been, you know what I mean? And face the world we've created, you know what I mean? Like that, just that agitation, you know what I mean? To really get people thinking, not just thinking, but, kind of drawing them out. In the beginning, it was a desire to draw them out because, like what I know for myself, especially with the emergence of Trump, a lot of people that I once admired kind of became pretty gross to me all of a sudden. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So it was like, how can I pull these people out, make them show their face, agitate them, say Black Lives Matter? You know what I mean? Like, you know, when they come back, oh, all lives matter. Okay, there you are. First of all, you know what I mean? It's like, hi, nice to see you again. Now that you're back out from under the carpet, all right, let's talk about this. You know what I mean? Like, sure, all lives matter, but if that's what you believe, help us prove it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so, because in the beginning, especially in the beginning, and it never really went away, but the All Lives Matter campaign was really just a stifling of Black Lives Matter. It wasn't in solidarity. It wasn't in accordance with. It was
Mm-hmm.
against.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. Not because all lives matter, but because it was a, a hopeful way of shutting it down.
Mm-hmm.
You know what
Just
I
like the
mean?
Blue Lives Matter, basically.
Basically, no different. No different. And blue lives don't even exist. So, you know what I mean? Not at least not on Earth anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe in the bug kingdom. I mean, yeah, they matter. They're very important actually. You know what I mean? Like,
That's
so the
hilarious.
agitation is extremely important. It's an important tool for me that I've kind of just owned and made my personal, I guess, personality on Facebook. And then secondly, I mean, I just can't stomach it. I can't stomach the police brutality, the corporate overrule, the record poverty, you know what I mean, on top of everything else. Like I can't stop it. I can't stomach it, and it's all a result of fascism. You know what I mean? Like we just got done hearing all these years, vote blue no matter who,
Oh God.
all this crazy stuff. So I'm watching all these people around me voting blue no matter who. Now, like I said, earlier, we got a Democrat mayor in the city of Philadelphia ripping tents out from underneath the people, shoving, addicts in jail that are detoxing and dying. Like that's Republican, bro. Like that's fat. Like that's no like, you know, like I said, the agitation. Like you and me, we can sit here and look at a picture of Republican and a Democrat and say they're the same, but they never will. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? A Democrat or Republican will never admit that they're the same. You
Of
know,
course
so
not.
that's why I was like, you know what? Meet them where they're at. You're not the same per se. One's red, one's blue. That's different, but you're equally destructive. You know what I mean? To a large portion of this country and marginalized communities and people of color and just the impoverished and all that kind of stuff. Your policies are equally destructive. They may not have mean tweets with them, But what the fuck? You
Mm-hmm.
guys are now handwriting messages on bombs that are getting dropped on schools and hospitals. So what are you even talking about mean tweets for anymore? You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of worse. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Oh, now, oh, so you're saying you want Trump? What the fuck? No. You know, I don't want none of this. Use your head. Why are we talking about any of this? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
this is the best we got? No, they're puppets. They're tools. They're what we're given. It's not what we got. You know, these are the crumbs that fell off the table that they're like, here. You know what I mean? Let them be your, shining stars while we're over here running the world. You know what I mean? Like, it's wild, man. Like, so
But
that's
like you
why
said, mm-hmm.
that's why I kind of nailed down anti-fascism as a, a path. And how it's so deeply rooted. Fascism is so deeply rooted in everything about us as a country right now, right down to our individual being. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like, that's what I was saying. Like, this country was founded on the idea of landowners being individual kings of their castles and having the right to kill people. And, you know, this fascist mindset is ingrained in us to just treat people like shit, not care, do what's
Mm-hmm.
best for, me. They started that whole rugged individualism and all that kind of stuff. Like, you know, it's been designed for us on our behalf. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that freedom is American freedom is uh, a well-designed experience that we will pay to be a part of. Like, it's crazy out there right
But what you're saying is, I appreciate the clarification on that definition too. I like the way you explain that. It it definitely gives authenticity and validity to that terminology. But we know that, and we said this earlier when we were on, that the way you're using it is not the way other people are using it. They're not using it like that. They don't
now.
have,
I think
they wouldn't even be able to explain it.
I try to keep it in its context, the broader message. It's not directed at people as much as it is the system. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? I'm not looking at my neighbor like, you're a fascist and I want to kill you and yada
Exactly.
yada. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like I said earlier, I'll sit back and be like, giving it what you're saying to me is, in support of fascism. You know what I mean? Like, yada yada, which would, most likely make you a fascist given the opportunity, or if it was,
Yeah.
whatever. You know what I mean? But like, it's not necessarily weaponized on if it's the system. That's the enemy, not the people. Like I said, like most of these like MAGAs and stuff, when I have gotten them to like stop screeching and just chill out for a minute, and we start talking about like, just normal things and saying like, hey, maybe we can get there this way, that they're open to it. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Their people ain't guiding them in them directions. You know what I mean? So they're not getting there on their own.
Okay, so contrast that, and this is what makes me. This was when I had my awakening when it came to and I've said it so many times. It's probably my biggest frustration I had with Trump within the electoral politics space is this idea of he's kind of an enigma in some ways. He's obviously tied to the Republican Party. So I'm not going to sit up here and pretend that he's not a Republican. He is, because
Mhm.
that's his party. But there's certain elements of his base that are kind of unique, because when I try to talk to my liberal friends about this stuff, man, it's almost like they feel like they're invincible. And if you tell them what you just said, like that's been a similar experience I've had talking to the Trump supporters, is they seem way more receptive for whatever reason to the messaging. And the liberals are like, I don't believe that you talked to a Trump supporter. I don't believe they did that. And it's like they won't even have the conversation, which is so strange to
That's
me.
the madness. Yeah, that's the madness. You know what I mean?
I don't
Because it's
understand
like,
that though.
because at the end of the day, if they would just talk with you, you know, we're gonna find that space we can coexist in and find a way to reach, a common goal. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like, it's we are in a world where so many people believe they have the answer, and it can only be this way. It's like, you know, that's not true. You know what I
And
mean? Like,
even with the animosity, even if the Trump supporters like that I talked to in response to like the liberals, which they call everyone that's a liberal, they call everyone left. Anything that's on that side is left to them. Like,
right,
and
right,
I've kind of got accustomed to that. But I'm examining not the labels, but I'm examining the behavior and like the anger and the animosity. There's not that same anger and ire towards the liberals as the liberals. It's almost like the liberals have been so indoctrinated by this media, the mainstream media, which is so weird because when Trump says fake news, it makes a lot of sense to a lot of people. Like this shit is fake in a way. Like we get what that means, even if it's for him to kind of flip it for his own agenda. There is a such thing as like the mainstream media is bullshit. It is in a lot of ways. And maybe this is kind of the evidence of that because these well-intentioned people that I know, and I know that they got great hearts, but it's like when it comes to politics, they've really been programmed that these people are like demons over here. And
right,
and I'm like, that's crazy, the power of media. Like the power of it shows that they're not aware that they're brainwashed.
right. They got our politics tied to our morality now. You know what I mean? Like, that's how deep it is. And like that's a symptom of a very sick system, you know. And like, yes, like, it's no secret that at the end of the day, like, liberals and all that stuff have been the easier, usually, they're the ones that are like, yeah, if they let us do this, we're all for it, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Where, so like, when I point out that, like, yeah, when I talk to the MAGA crowd, like, and actually get them, like, get to that point and they're receptive to these things, like, it is almost a shock. You know what I mean? Because they're usually very irrational on the surface, right? Like, so like,
Mm-hmm.
right, but like right now, the liberal base is not fired up. MAG is fired up. They're always fired up, ready to go. Like right now, they're kind of like being very stationary. Like, I think, I don't think they know, Trump's making a fool of himself. They don't really know what's going on. They're kind of sensing they're probably going to lose or whatever. Who knows what's cooking if that happens? You know what I mean? Kind of thing. But right now, liberals are so paranoid
Mm-hmm.
about Trump's the idea of another Trump presidency. They're paranoid about the idea of Project 2025. You know, they're they're scared out of their minds. You know what I mean? Where, you know, they're and now that they're tied, the Democratic Party is tied to guys in Israel, for example. You know what I mean? And now that the Democratic Party is, you know, tied to these police states where they're building police cities and all that, you know what I mean? You're really seeing this shift in people that presented themselves as extremely liberal several years ago is actually quite
Mm-hmm.
moderate and very closely connected to a conservative mindset, just different colored jerseys. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? Like, you're both authoritarian, You believe in state violence as a means to control the populace. You know what I mean? And, you're always just working for a certain group of people, that might widen or shrink over the years, you know what I mean? But, it's so,
It,
because the
it
liberals are so insane right now, yes, they come off as more irrational right now because look what they got to try to make seem okay. It would make me insane too. You know what I mean? I'm insane just trying to process it. You know
I
what I
just
mean?
I never thought I would see a day, man, where some of my friends like they're covering Dick Cheney, man. It's like they're rationalizing this like in a political way and it's pragmatic that these warmongers are now on their side of the ticket.
I've
Like
heard the
they're
term.
justifying. And I'm just saying, how can you justify this, man?
I've heard the term Cheney crack thrown around a few times now
Oh
ever
my
since
God.
Obama got
Oh
put in.
God.
And that's a reality, right? Liz Cheney, Democrats are all loving Liz Cheney, she stands up to Trump and all that. And that's all they needed to hear. Forget all the time she actually went along with Trump and the policies, not that he wrote them, but went along with the agenda. But because she was the lone one that was I don't like him, she's like some kind of savior to the Democratic Party. It's like, are you kidding me? What are you even saying right now? Like, I don't even know you anymore. You know what I mean? That's not the direction we were supposed to go. That's not, you know, I mentioned in one of my writings, if I remember correctly, how, you know, nobody was happy with Trump's first term, so Biden got more support than he needed, than he deserved, I should say. Not needed, but more support than he deserved, especially from people on the left, that were left of center, that weren't really buying, you know, Democratic bullshit anymore. And, you know, now that we all got that bitter taste in our mouth from him, pulling a fast one again, you know, just like it's just another day. It's just how it goes. It's the way of the world. Nothing we can do. Republicans won't let us, Um, they're not as willing to give that support to Kamala, which
Mm-hmm.
has the liberal base extremely charged and freaked out and paranoid. It's, and and just like we're seeing, in Israel and Gaza, this this push for, you know, Palestine to, capitulate to Israel. You know what I mean? They're doing the same thing to us on this. We're expected to capitulate to this political demand. We demand you give your support to this person to save me, not a greater
Mm-hmm.
good, but I might actually be affected if this goes the wrong way. So I demand your capitulation. That's how I see it. So I'm like, I'm not
And that's
playing. I'm not playing. You know what I mean? I'm not playing the
I
game.
just this thing has come around so full circle, man. I tell you, because there's some people, and you don't forget what people say. Like, I don't know if you know who he is, Lord Jamar. Have you heard of him?
Not off the
Lord
top of my head.
Jamar, Lord Jamar is a rapper. He's part of a legendary group called Brand Nubian.
Okay.
I think Brand Nubian, they're based somewhere in the Northeast. I'm pretty sure, almost 100% sure, probably the
So
New York
perhaps I'm not
area.
more familiar with them. Okay.
But Brand Nubian, they will be in that same era with the Tribe Called Quest.
Okay, that was my
Naughty by Nature, like that sort
right.
of an era of
Mhm.
like the golden age of rap, basically the
Right.
golden age of hip hop. And this guy was one of the he's still a part of Brand Nubian, Lord Jamar, and he does a lot of interviews on Vlad TV, and he does a lot of interviews just on in general, mainstream media, like social media, because he's in the music industry, but they're very much like an independent hip hop group. And this guy is very conservative in his politics as far as and that's what I try to tell a lot of people, man. Most people that I know, like in their core, are like not just family oriented, but they're very conservative. Like black culture in general is pretty conservative um
It
about a
has to
lot of
be.
different things.
It has to be, right? What choice
But
did
but
they have?
people but people but we're not told but we know this a bullshit campaign because they always use this shit like, oh, because the blacks support the Democrats so much. Of course, they're more left than everybody else, which I don't believe that. I'm sorry. I don't.
Right.
I know that people say that. And I've heard black people themselves say, oh, like, we're the most revolutionary, we're the most. I'm saying to myself, in what time period are we talking about? Like, I don't know if we're talking about the same time period, my friend, because in 2024, I don't believe that. I
Right.
just think that everyone is kind of in their fragmented state, but it kind of goes back to the smear campaign. It goes back to agency, like how people have a right to their own voice and stuff. And these people are trying to like, and we're going to the Democrats, like this is the strategy. They're obviously desperate. They're trying to basically dictate what black people are feeling in their hearts.
Right.
Like they're trying to sell to America that these black people they fuck with Kamala Harris. They don't. They just don't. I'm sorry. Um, she's probably I don't know what it is about her, but she just doesn't hit with the black community. She just doesn't. I don't give a damn who trolls this page later, but people are
Um.
lying when they say that she's popular. Like a lot of people that I know, I say over half the black people that I know, I'm not even making this shit up. Like
Right.
they don't even believe that she's black, man. Like they say this stuff. Like she's not black anyway, man. And I get this from women and men. And
Mm-hmm.
then I tell my friends this, and they're like, I tell my other friends this, and they just don't believe me, man. They
Right.
don't believe that it's that serious of a problem. They think it's because they're sexist towards her. And I'm saying to myself, okay, so you're going to use the sexist argument, but it's okay when you said, "Oh, I'm voting for her because she's a woman." So
Right.
okay, so you admit that that has a something to do with your decision. This is like when we were all like, Obama got the benefit of the doubt. All the black people voted for him.
Right.
But see, that trick was played with us 15 years ago, 16 years
Right.
ago. That trick
Mm-hmm.
has already been seen. So you can't expect
Right.
the same trick to work again. So
Right.
they
And
use
that's what.
sexism as a thing, but it's not even, dude, people see this bullshit, man.
Right. The today's public, like it, they got blinders onto that stuff. I mean, I guess you can say because, you know, I guess with the majority of Americans being white, that you don't necessarily see that effect happening in black communities. You know what I mean? So now, 15 years later, forget that that happened, and they don't know that you know. You know what I mean? They don't
How
know
did
that
they
you
not know
remember
though?
that.
Like so many people are
You know what
saying,
I mean?
so many people are pointing out, like, dude, like, do you not see that? And they're
Right,
like in your party, they're telling you, like, these are black Democrats are telling me the same thing, like, but I see what you're saying. They'll say something like, but I see what you're saying. Like, we see the same stuff that you're pointing out.
right.
But I
I
don't know why
mean,
no, like, why are they not saying it? Like, maybe they are seeing it, and maybe they just can't admit that they're seeing it. I don't know.
well, I mean, because what it is they feel hopeless otherwise. Like, what are you gonna do? You know what I mean? Like, that's our best chance of
Yeah.
not. You know what I mean? Like, so people, you know, aren't willing to sacrifice. Rightfully so. You know what I mean? Like, and to a certain degree, like, we got kids, we got family. Those, but like, people depend on us, and yada yada, like, and it's like that across the country, across the world. That's part of the design. That's why you can't fight back. Like, so what are you gonna do, right? So next thing you know, you're defending that system and saying, hey, I know they're bombing hospitals, but this guy's sending mean tweets, and he's also going to not let, abortions be a thing anymore, and this, that, and the third. So you have to vote for this person you don't like, that you don't believe represents you. It's not about you.
Mm.
It's about this greater picture, but this greater picture they're really talking about is them individually. This is going to affect me personally. Otherwise they wouldn't care about politics. How many years we live in this country with most people not even that engaged in politics? You know what I mean? Because it was like nothing major really happening. You know what I mean? But now, like, people's lives are on the line. Like I said, our
Mm-hmm.
morality is tied to our politics. So it's like, the majority of people that just feel so helpless and resigned to it and look at it as the only road we have. That's why it's the only road we have. You know what I mean? So they're gonna fight you tooth and nail about it. You know
What
what
are
I
you
mean?
seeing being in a city like Philadelphia? Like what are you seeing is if you were to read the pulse of the people in Philadelphia, just from the people you rub shoulders with, how would you capture that sentiment right now in this political environment?
I mean, it's like I said, the second you say, I don't like this thing Kamala did, oh, so you want Trump then. You're saying you
Oh
want Trump.
God. Is
You
that
know?
really it though, man? Like
That's it.
it's
That's the extent of it. No matter what I say, well, the alternative is this and that, and it's like it's not the only alternative. It's the only alternative you're allowing. You know what I mean? Because as a collective voice that each party owns, you know what I mean? Like, you're resigned to that, you're accepting of that, you're waving a white flag. So now you're scared of this thing. So if you suspect somebody not being on board with that, you're the enemy now. You know what I mean? When Trump, first came in and all that stuff, and I was going hard on Trump. I had like all, hundreds of people like, yeah, that's funny, that's great. And then Biden got elected, and I'm going in on Biden, and all them people are gone now because you know what I mean. Like they didn't know that. Wait a second, I'm not for either. But you know what I mean? Like, they were just in on the Trump bashing. They didn't realize it was a system
right.
I was going after. You know what I mean? So now they're not my friends so much anymore. So now they see me
Mm,
coming from this other angle, and it's like,
you one of them.
I'm not. I haven't changed my stance, but you have. You were
Mm-hmm.
just out there with me a couple years ago. You know, out in the streets talking about how you want things better for people. Black Lives Matter. We need all these things. We gotta get Trump out so we can save people. And now, instead of marching against cops for killing somebody, you're telling me to elect one for president who's already building cop cities all over the place and, ripping tents out from underneath homeless people and chasing them out all across the country. This is happening. They're waiting for that thing to come down from the Supreme Court to say homelessness is a crime. You know what I mean? And like our cities are built to, not, promote the ability to live homeless. You know what I mean? So it's like, what do you mean I'm not allowed to look at this system in distrust and and to say I don't see the representation? You know, like, why is that such a controversial thing? To say I see who's not represented. We should have that
Mm-hmm.
representation. Why aren't they allowed to be represented? You know, and why are you fighting to keep that representation from? You know what I mean? Like, and
And that's the reason why, and I know that's why. I don't know at what point you stopped watching like the previous episode, but I know I knew that was going to cause a lot of like response when I brought that up about the protest because
mhm,
I know I'm not saying it to be an asshole, to be a contrarian to people. It's just simply this is what people are doing, and this is kind of like, okay, that confirmed my suspicions. Like that people aren't doing. Some people aren't doing this for reasons that I think are like should be productive. Like
Mhm.
I think that there was value if you're going to keep that same sentiment energy going, but clearly that there was another agenda at play. For you to
Right.
have what you had then to what we got going on now is like this is exactly what the ruling class is wanting. Like this is the most this both of them say it. This is the most important bullshit election of our lifetime. They say shit every cycle.
Right.
Like
And
they say
then,
the same fucking bullshit every cycle.
and I can't tell you how many people are like, look, man, if we just win this one, Trump is gone. And I try to tell them Trumpism will live on for a very long time.
It's going to be
And here's
gone
the thing.
beyond
Here's what
him.
people don't understand the most is like Trump is the dumbest motherfucker they've rolled out in front of us in a long, long time. Okay? But what they do got ready and waiting is educated, talented young people with that same mindset that when they get put in a position of power, actually know how to use it. Okay. So now that I remember, you mentioned that last podcast that you had that you said I saw, and I remember you guys had mentioned the bully pulpit. There
Mm-hmm.
was talk about the bully pulpit, and that was something I really that stuck out to me. You know what I mean? And I was like, that's something that deserves a look at. Okay. And if I remember correctly, you guys chalked the bully pulpit up as dead. It's not like
Yeah.
as how can you so like it's how can you can't look at somebody like Donald Trump and say the bully pulpit's dead. You know what I mean? This is a man that's been in power as the president of the United States. You know what I mean? And never wrote one word on a document that was going to be entered into law other than a signature. He literally would go on Twitter and say, they said on Fox News that I demand this thing. And all of a sudden, Congress starts scrambling to make sure this thing gets done. You know what I mean? He gets out in front of his base. Oh, they're doing, immigrants are doing horrible things, and I'm going to be this, tough on yada yada, and we need to do these things. And all of a sudden, all these things start getting done. Not because he's writing on paper and creating legislation, like how Obama half wrote the Affordable Cares Act. You know what I mean by it? Like he didn't do none of that. He decreed it. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Now I do got to say this. It may, what can if we look at that? What can we learn from that? You know, I would have to say that for minorities, the bully pulpit does not exist. But we saw how Trump, you know, at the beginning of Obama's term, is when he started drawing his base in, build that base, you know, become president, and to paraphrase from your guys' conversation, hijack the Republican bus. It's their
Mm-hmm.
bus now. He took that bus. It's a brand new bus. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it
Like,
is.
we watched that happen in real time in our lives. And it's no different than anything else in the world. In America, white people can, the white man can effectively use the bully pulpit and fire up white America to the extent get shit done. They win
Mm-hmm.
elections, you know what I mean? They get other elected officials, they get judges, they get, you know what I mean? All these things. You know what I mean? And, you know, anytime, you know, Obama didn't use his seat as like a bully pulpit. I think he knew better. You know what I mean? But that was never his aim. He was always trying to be a voice to everybody. I'll give him that, you know.
He's
He was
using the
trying
bullet
to
pulpit
first,
now, though.
huh?
He's using the bullet pulpit now.
Oh yeah. He's got jokes, right? He's got jokes, you know. It's like, but you know, for white America and the strength of white America, the bully pulpit is an effective tool for fascism to come of age. You
Mm,
know what I mean? So minorities, not so much. It's just not the level of support unless you could pull from the white base. You know what I mean? Like I forget the numbers. So, what is it? Like, I think black people make up like less than 15% of the country, I think
yeah,
it
it's
is,
like
something
thirteen
like
and a
that.
half percent.
Right. And then you got the other smaller things. It's like, where's the opportunity for the strength of that community if their voice can't be elevated to the same level of this shrieking crowd over here? You know what I mean? And it's not anytime anybody's tried to step over to raise that up, they get chopped at the legs. You know what I mean? And ripped out from underneath of them. So it's been by design that the effectiveness of something like the bully pulpit isn't made available. Now, see, that's what intrigued me about uh what was Jasmine Sherman.
Yes.
She would not be afraid to do that thing, man. That had me so juiced up watching her talk about all these things, and I'd be like, man, that would be so exciting. She knows, like, you
Mm-hmm.
see this, youthful energy and exuberance, but you see this knowledge of the system that not just comes from reading a book, but actually having your hands in the field, and you know what I mean. And it's like, oh, that's exactly what this political system needs if we're going to see any kind of real change right now. Make them take it away from you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Do it anyway. Presidential decree. Everything they're scared of Democratic presidents doing, you do that shit, and make it happen because the Republicans ain't working with you. You know what I mean? So, like, just doing it like that's such energetic, right? It's that same energy that Trump gave his base. Yeah, this is guy that's going to get shit done for us. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? And that's what they hang their hat on. I don't care if
Okay.
he's a piece of. He knows he's using this piece of shit to get it done.
So I see. So you've actually elevated that, and that makes a lot of sense. That can be taken in a lot of different ways depending on who the recipient of the bully pulpit is. Because if you just said yourself, if you're outside of that base, you're going to have a different reaction to that message. And it's different when you feel like you're being attacked by that bully pulpit as opposed to being outside of the bully pulpit, but it doesn't affect you the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Right,
that that's where, and that doesn't take anything away from Theus's point, because I can't control how he feels with Project
right,
2025. And I think that's what Marlon was going to get at, but he had to leave. But they clearly feel a certain way about Project 2025 that I just don't. I
right.
just, there's just a, regardless of it not even having anything to do with Trump or not, it's not even about having anything to do with Trump at all. It's simply um the effect that this has, the fact that this person does. And I see what you're getting at. Trump has used the bully pulpit
A
in a
very
lot of
effective.
in a very effective way. Um my question to that to follow up on what you're getting at is, so is this a result of the two-party system that has elevated this bully pulpit more? And I just don't subscribe to the idea that he's if we're talking about just like a white supremacist in the sense that if we're saying that he's a white supremacist, and that's like kind of discounting everybody else, that I think that's bullshit. I don't believe he's a white
Well,
supremacist.
I think it's
If we're saying that everyone has attributed to that white supremacy, and he's like a face to that white supremacy, that makes a little bit more sense. But to say that these other people aren't doing things in their way of achieving their goals, and they've exploited the people the same way, like the people will be lying. Like he's simply tapping into people's like depression. He's tapping into that
right.
sentiment
He's,
that's
I
already
mean,
been there.
his playbook was written almost 100 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Literally nothing new, no new tactic. All your fears about what's wrong with this country are the same things they were talking about 100 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, it's nothing new. So, as far as the bully pulpit goes, it generally doesn't matter, what the messaging is if the base is there to respond. You know what I mean? Um, but for Trump, he's the one white supremacists support. You know what I mean? So that goes without saying. I mean, I
Okay,
think
okay, that's what I was getting at. But how is he able? And this was going to be my question as far as the two-party system. Is it a two-party system thing, or is it a Trump thing? How is he able to gain with so many black people and so many he's gained, he's basically flipped what the Republican Party used to be,
mhm,
which was like very much not diversified. But in a lot of ways, he's actually diversified the Republican Party's base. Like he's gotten all types of people. Like I know a lot of gay people who support Trump, and
I've
it's like
seen it all. I've seen it all too. The
and it's like
different.
and it's like how is that he's like he's one thing, but it's like how's he getting all these types of people to support him?
Right. So I mean, it is wild, right? I mean, at the end of the day, um, I've always said, a lot of these groups of people, women for Trump, my,
Mm-hmm.
various minorities for Trump, whatever, like to me that's akin to, slugs for salt. You know what
Oh
I
God.
mean? What are you like? Why? You know what I mean? But a lot of it, see, but like a lot of it is like, you know, it's it's it still hasn't been that long since, them Dixiecrat years where the parties flip and all that stuff and da 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 da. So a lot of these communities are still heavily ingrained as that original Republican. You know what I mean? And like still hold them original Republican values, even though that party's been hijacked. You know what I mean? And we
Mm.
all tend to believe, like that in the end, the universal bend towards justice kind of thing. You know what I mean? And like, when Trump first got elected, oh, don't worry, he was Democrat back in the day. He'll probably do more Democratic stuff. And, people just feel better knowing the party that's ingrained in them is in power. You know what I mean? And so, like, that's why in the end, you see a lot of these, especially minorities who, especially ones that come from other countries and stuff that are heavily like conservative, you know what I mean, in value, in their values and stuff like that, would try to connect with what they're told is, the party of the working family person. You know what I mean? Like, if you're judging a book by its cover, you're like, yeah, that's the book I want to read. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, and with the large majority of us not having truly being connected to politics until it got so wild that there was a Trump presidency, and how do we get out of that? And like now more people are looking, but It used to not be such a controversial thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whatever. You know, my family was always this or that, so that's what I feel good about hitting the trigger on. So I'll do it. But now you got to actually put thought into your vote, and I mean,
Mm.
it's like I said, with our morality tied to it. Um, I think various people of color that are Americans, and born and bred Americans, they're no different than the majority of the white people. Like, in the sense that, there's a large base of them that view immigration as a
Mm-hmm.
detriment to society. That
Mm-hmm.
look at the drug use and crime as a detriment to society. You know what I mean? And they want results. You know what I mean? And like, they're starting to resign themselves to the idea, like, hey, maybe we just need this crazy motherfucker to get shit done. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? These things that I worry about. I feel immigrants are a problem. I feel crime is a problem. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? I'm worried about my neighbor's cat now. You know what I mean? So, like all the things he charges them up about, like it resonates with everybody. Like they know this. The playbook's been written a long time ago, and they
It
know these are
has.
things that resonate with everybody. You know,
And and that's the reason why I think there's a I think that Trump is a salesperson, man, like first and foremost. And but I'm still trying to figure this out, man. I've always had this theory that, man, he's like a fucking Democrat, like all along. Like I've always
well,
viewed him
that's
as
what
a
we were
Democrat.
always told. That's what we were
No, no,
told.
but I guess it's like, how is he different than a Democrat? It's almost like he gets the benefit of having, because I remember those George W. Bush days, man. And I remember
Right.
the Clinton days, because I'm in my
Hmm.
40s, you're in your 40s.
Yeah.
And we remember these changes of the arms. And the Republican Party, man, it's like the people that I talked to, they were like neocons, man. Like 25 years ago, these fuckers were neocons.
Right.
And now they're Democrats, but the Democrats are neocons.
Right.
So
And it's
they,
like, yo,
they think that they're joining something new. They think they're joining something that's different. But what all they're really doing is just, man, it's really hard to explain. That's the
well,
reason
see,
why I'm
so
trying to
what
figure out.
what you got is, you got Trump in this Republican base that's dragged stuff, so far to the right that to even try to appeal to the part of that base that might help get your party over, you have to fall here, which is the right, you know?
Mm,
So to stay valid, the Democrats are just getting pulled further and further right every day because you got
mm.
Trump repping the Republican Party further to the right. And that's so crazy. That's so crazy that, we forgot how crazy this sounded that the Democrats can do this now. You know what I mean? Even though it was batshit crazy when Trump talked about it and we were out in the streets picketing when Trump was doing it. You know what I mean? But now it's not so crazy because he's on this other, even crazier shit now. You know what I
Okay,
mean?
that's what I'm trying to get. That's what I'm trying. That's what I've always struggled with him, though, is because is it is it really far right is the question that I have, because the fact that he's able to, even though he's full of shit, how is he able to argue himself as the anti-war candidate? Like, for him to even be in this position in the first place, to openly be the anti-war candidate,
I
to me,
mean,
that's like wild as fuck. Like, if we're talking
so,
about,
I mean, let's call it what it is. I mean, the dude's a tool. You know what I mean? People recognize the strength of his voice, his ability to reach his base, And his platform is created for him. He might, offer up a couple things.
Mm.
Hey, this is what I believe or whatever. But then they go and do it for him, try to prepare him best they can, and hope he don't make too much of a fool out of himself when he's trying to get it out to the people. You know what I mean? So he's a tool. He's not actually doing anything. Like I said, Trump never wrote any kind of policy or law
Mm-mm.
or anything. You know what I mean? He tweeted. You know what I mean? Like that's it. So, it's not he's not anything. He's a tool. He's a kingmaker now for the Republican Party. Anybody tied to him in the Republican Party is going to have success for, the next few election cycles, at least, at the very minimum. You know what I mean? The
Mm.
DeSantis and the Cottons and all the
The
other
cruises, all those
people, the
fuckers.
Cruzes, and the people that actually know what the fuck they're doing in, the political landscape. You know what I mean? Who I consider more dangerous than Trump. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
I see Trump
Absolutely.
as a dummy, as a tool, being used. But once you start getting these DeSantises, these Cottons, these Cruzes into that position, they actually know how to write policy. They
Mm-hmm.
actually know whose ass to kiss to get it pushed through. And now they got the Supreme Court and they got judges across the country. And they just need one more win, and they'll be able to ram through 40 years of a Republican wish list. You know what I mean? And that, I think people recognize that to a degree. And that's what energizes the base. Hey, things are going to change. And for some people, far too many, they believe them changes are going to be good somehow. You know what I mean? And it's
Okay,
disheartening
so
to say, but it's a reality.
you drew a very interesting picture. So my and we'll have to close pretty soon because I got to get this interview posted so the beautiful people can watch this unbelievable episode 139, I believe, with my friend Anthony
39,
Dax Simpson.
okay?
And yeah, this has been such a great conversation. It's been really fulfilling. It has. Um, so can there be a case made? And gosh, man, I'm doing things. I did something in the last interview. I think I asked some questions never asked. And this interview, I definitely come up with some. I try to come up with inventive and creative ways of bringing things up. Is there a case to be made for supporting Kamala Harris? And a two-parter, is this something that's already factored into the equation and they're aware of them helping Trump out? Like, is this like done on purpose, or are they actually scared of Trump, or is this a part of the game itself?
I think it's both. I think there's probably like a large portion of Congress and all that are sitting back laughing their asses off at all this. Nothing will change for them. This is all by design. Then you probably got, a lot of the newer congressmen and state reps that are fresh in the game, a little more panicked, you know what I mean? A little more on par with the public, you know what I mean? Like, so, like, it's by design. Yes, they're working to get, like, it's kind of like, you know, now they say, like, in chess, you got to think 5 moves ahead. You know what I mean? Well, you know, our our picks have already been chosen for us. The people that told us where to pick, they're the ones that are already 5 moves ahead before we even come to the conclusion, oh, we need to make a move. You know what I mean? So, like, they're able and have more than enough time to let it develop organically, kind of lead it down a direction, to let it grow organically in a way that presents itself as plausible, or, you know what I mean? Like, so is
Mm-hmm.
there a case for Kamala? I mean, Trump would be pretty terrible, you know. Uh, I'm not voting for her. I know most people are, and like it, so it's gonna make, I think either way, like there's gonna be nuttiness. You know what I mean? Like whoever wins, people are gonna go nuts, and whoever wins, some people are gonna be relieved. It's my perspective that no matter who wins, roughly 30% of the country is going to be happy about it. No matter who loses, roughly 30% of the country is going to be upset about it. You know what I mean? And the rest are going to be as indifferent as they ever were. You know what I mean? So, I would say, you know, you want people, I'm all for autonomy. So if you get in that booth and you're telling yourself, I just gotta keep it up and I gotta vote Kamala, like go for it. You know what I mean? It's like, for the most part, like we said, what's the difference right now? Like it's like for myself, I'm just not doing it. Do I believe, a large group, I think there's more people. I think Kamala's gonna win. I feel like Kamala's gonna win, right? And I feel like she don't need my help. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm not even going to bother investing that energy. She doesn't represent me. You know what I mean? So I don't care that I'm off to the side. I don't care if you do care that I'm off to the side. You know what I mean? Like, this is your game. I wasn't invited. I'm going to hang with the other people that weren't invited. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And, I can't consider organizing, you to be politically lazy, especially if you're actually doing it. You know what I mean? Um, I think just buckling to the system, maybe not lazy, the easy way out. I'm not interested in easy. Um, I come from a poor family. We've been fighting for our lives my whole life. That will continue after this election. You know what I mean? And I'll be with the other people fighting for their lives. So, you know, it's, you know, my case for Kamala is that's where you're at. Go for it. Like I'm not, my mindset, is certainly not very well received. You know what I mean? There's,
Mm-hmm.
few and far between are people like, right on, man. Yeah. You know what I mean? Most people are like, oh, so you want Trump. You know what I mean? And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, that's not what I said. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to matter in the long run. Like there's still going to be record poverty. There's still going to be record, you know, pay gaps and all that kind of stuff. And like, they're still going to keep promising this, middle class the world, but, you know, it's going to be, the working people giving this top 1% the world as it's always been. So, does it matter? you know,
Okay,
I'm
so
not,
I got
go for it.
I,
Yeah.
I got one final question before we go, and I did not think that this conversation was going to go in so many different directions. I mean, but that's kind of the point. I mean, that's when it's just a real conversation. I mean, there's some kind of guiding questions, but it goes all over the place. Um, so if I was a Kamala supporter, which just so people who they've never seen me before, I'm not going to tell anyone, I'm not going to endorse anyone publicly, but it's clear that I'm outside of the system. Like I'm not supporting, any of the duopoly people, of course not.
Right.
But if I'm a Kamala supporter, based on what we just talked about the last hour, especially, if I'm a Kamala supporter, and you're in the streets with this person and a common supporter asks you directly, Anthony, based on what you said earlier, do you believe that Kamala is scared of Trump herself? Like, if a Kamala supporter is asking you this yourself, do you believe that she's scared of Trump? And do you think it affects her either way beyond this election or even leading up to this election? Does she really fear a Trump presidency like she says, or is it just all part of the circus? Like,
I don't
if
think she does. I don't think she truly fears, any of that. She's already on top, right? You know what I mean? So, like, what part of Project 2025 is actually going to affect her? Does she plan on having an abortion anytime soon or something like that? You know what I mean? Like, so, like, a lot of that is just, this is why you need to vote for her. You know what I mean?
mm,
Like, it's not because she's going to be affected by any of it if it happens. You know what I mean? She's already got universal health care. She's
mm-hmm,
already got a universal basic income for life. You know what I mean? She could lose this election, throw her feet up, and get a couple $100,000 a year for life. You know what I mean? So I don't think she truly fears it. I don't think she wants to lose the election, and I think she's probably competitive by nature. So in our competitive nature, we show fear. You know what I mean? But I
mm-hmm.
think she knows she's set. I think she'd like the opportunity to try to do some things. I think deep down, given the opportunity, she would be on board with some things eventually, like and do more progressive things. She just knows she can't. But this is a line, that is her profession. This is her chosen path, career. Like, so she's playing the game. She says, we need a strong two-party system. She's a duopolist. You know what
Oh,
I mean?
wow. She
To
said
me,
that?
that's yes, she has out loud. She's used them
Mm,
words. We need a strong two-party system. I mean, it's kind of a Biden motto. It was
mm-hmm.
Obama said the same thing too.
Yeah, you're right.
We need a strong Republican Party. Like, they've said these
Mm-hmm,
things. They need each other.
mm-hmm.
So it's a kind of a lost cause for me. But we also know, like, hey, this is where we're at. This is the reality of it. All right, I'm over here saying, hey, my boy Kiko's showing us we got different options. Let's, check these out. Let's talk about this. Nah. All right, I'm gonna go back to work and try to see what I can do to help people. You know what I mean?
And
Like,
and actually, and there's other options too. There's lots of other
right.
options.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Right. That's what I'm
my,
saying. We had a whole
my
laundry
question
list
for
of it.
our question for the people is really like, what are you going to be doing after November the 5th? Like, what are you going to be doing all these other days? I mean, man, because that's the thing that kills me about these people who put their whole lives into like electoral politics. It's like, man, this shit doesn't go down all the time. It's like it gets loud certain times of the year. And then it's like people say, that's just like, that's why this is a bullshit smear that they're using against Dr. Stein. And I doubt if I support Dr. Stein, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
But
I've been back and forth on that too. Yeah,
I
it's like,
just I just seriously doubt it. But it's just like they say this shit like, oh, she's only around every 2 to 4 years. I'm saying to myself, isn't that the case for everybody? Like,
that she only gets pushed every 2 to 4 years, but she's one of them ones, like a lot of them. Like, she's doing her work. She don't stop. You know
mm-hmm.
what I mean? She's out there doing stuff for her message, for her, platforms, for her things. It's up to the people to get to know these people and support them and elevate them to a position of, you know, the ability to do something. You know what I mean? Like, I hear that all the time. Like, oh, where we only hear about these people around election time. Well, yeah, that's mainstream. It's mainstream
That's
media's
part of the
job is to
mainstream
keep
media. Yes.
you keep
Mm-hmm.
you in the shadows on them, and they're very good at that.
Mm-hmm.
It's your job to break through that veil. You're not very good at that job. You know what I mean? Like, we need to do better and break through. And and we did, again, we all know, like, most of the time we ain't got time to even be worried about this stuff. And all we know is what we hear and what's put in front of us, because we're at work and we're with the kids and we're cooking dinner and we're doing laundry and we're doing whatever. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's what they're there for. So we don't have to think about this stuff. But oh no, now this guy's doing crazy shit. Like, you know what I
So,
mean?
so, so I'm gonna
America
actually,
doesn't want to be engaged like that.
yeah, definitely. I think after, so I was telling Jack Rasmus, and now I'm talking to you about this, and this was not part of the plan, but I think I'm gonna slip in like another commentary episode since I got so much shit going on this week as it is, and then the next week, and then the next week. I might as well just get something in while I'm here. I just it'd be fun November 5th. I got to come up with the ad in that, and I have to promote that pretty soon. I'm probably going to start working on that tomorrow, and I'm getting that program out as soon as possible. It's going to be an interesting night. It really is, on a lot of different fronts. And I just think that what we're looking at down the road, like that, I have a lot of optimism. I really do. Because I think that we're especially in a position to be optimistic, because regardless of what happens, honestly, man, I could just not vote at all, man. Dude, I don't fucking care, man, honestly.
Right.
Like,
Mm.
I could do that and I'd totally be fine with myself. Like, I'm not sweating too much about this stuff, man, because
Right.
I'm already in a state that's predetermined. Honestly, if we're talking
Right.
about the president.
I'm in Pennsylvania, and dead smack split between two of
Yeah.
Pennsylvania's most powerful counties. And I'm everything that's wrong with this country right now, because I'm not voting. You know what I mean? Like, it's not there for me. Everybody around me is, and I'm not telling them not to. But and I'm told all the time, oh, if you're in a swing state, please just reconsider. And I'm like, it's my belief that my singular voice is not needed in this conversation, because you're both wrong. You know what I
and,
mean?
and
Like, we're not getting through here, and my voice is better served with those I can have an impact on. You know what I mean?
And I would say that as a non-voter in a lot of different situations, I would say, like, if someone would have just, man, if someone would put a gun in my head right now and be like, man, what are you going to do? I'd be like, man, I'm not going to waste my time, man. I'm not going to waste 2 hours of my fucking day to these long ass lines to go.
What?
No, but that's kind of where I'm at right now, man. Honestly, I'm not going to tell people who, even if I do, is just say, man, I don't know, man. Like, it's at this point, I thought about something because I had to fly back down to Tennessee unexpectedly. I was with my wife in Michigan with her family. And I can't tell you how many ads I saw the 5 days I was there in Michigan. I I know it's bad in Pennsylvania, just the ads.
Bro,
And I'm thinking,
I'm getting Kamala commercials that are ripped straight from Republican headlines. Like, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, it's crazy the kind of ads we're getting, and it's every commercial. They take turns. Whether it's the presidential thing or it's state. And see, where I'm at, I'm in a tri-state area. So I got Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. So I gotta get them all. Oh, vote this guy for Delaware, vote that guy for Jersey, vote this guy for Pennsylvania. You know what I mean? Like, because we share the same
Hmm.
TV air space.
That's
You know,
crazy.
So it's like, it's mind numbing, man. My eyes roll back in my head when I got commercials come on, because that's all it is. You know, it's
And I
dominant.
think of, but something that we were talking about before. So I saw probably in that 5 day span, this is not an exaggeration. I probably saw 700 ads in that 5 day span. So you're talking about like 140 fucking ads a day, like on
Yeah.
average. And
Every break got them.
but the crazy thing about it is this: where could that money be? This is why I tell people who support the two parties, especially because the one thing I do have sympathy for when it comes to independents and third parties is that they don't take the dark money and stuff. So can you imagine what could be done with that money that you're pouring into these assholes? Like all the money that's going into these ads. Could you imagine what could if people like me and Anthony had access to that? Could you imagine what we could be building with that money if we had
God,
that?
man. That's a good point, man, because that's something I meant, that was something I said a while back to somebody, you know, when they hit me with one of that, like, oh, who's going to pay for it? Where are we going to get the money from? That's exactly where I told them to start. So let's start with all that campaign funding. You know what I mean? Like, what we need all that for? Like, you know what I mean? That could be doing so much more good in the world, actually contributing to something. And it's like, that's how you know it's all just a circus and a show, because, you know, that's where
That's a
all the
lot
money
of
goes
money
to.
to blow. That's a lot of money to blow. And we're talking about, and you don't even see these ads because a lot of these people don't even declare for office of president until maybe give them a year. Sometimes it's not even a year. But out of that 365 days, the amount of money that's put into not just the presidency, but just all the Senate races and all
Right.
the House races and all just like the county clerk and just
Right.
anything.
And
And
in today's world, like, is it even really necessary? Like, you know, you got a handful of people, you know, like you and I, that question the whole thing, but everybody else is like, you know, streamlined. You know, they're voting straight down the ballot.
that's
And
crazy.
I haven't met one person that was like, I saw this commercial yesterday and changed my mind.
Oh wow.
You know what I mean? Like, I've never seen that. You know what I mean? So, like, is it even necessary in today's world? You know what I mean? Because, like, we already know where we're at. You know, we know right now, you know, when we walk in the booth, what button we're hitting, you know, and that's not changing, you know, and it's just based in desperation, but it doesn't have an effect on anything. It's just a waste of money. And it's not a waste of money. It's, it's, it's like a ceremonial wealth shift. You know what I mean? Here, we're giving our people money. You know what I mean? Like, it's a wealth shift. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's virtually ceremonial. You know what I mean? But viewed as advertised. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like they know it's pointless, but like this is how we can channel money to the people that are spreading our message. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's a backdoor.
Yeah, it is. It's like an infinite back door. Like it's man, we just the Pandora's box, and I don't know when the end is near. I hope it comes sooner than
Man,
later. Oh my gosh.
it's
But
midnight.
but Anthony, since we have to go, I do want to give you a chance to tell my audience, in case they had a question or comment, what would be the most effective way to get in touch with you? And again, this has been a wonderful episode 139, and I can't wait to do the edits and put it up as soon as possible. It will probably be up in the morning. And
Man, that's
what would be the
exciting.
best way to get in touch with you, though?
You know, I would say the Voices of Poverty Project at gmail.com. There is the Facebook page that has Messenger. You know, I can be reached through Messenger on the Facebook page. I would start there. You know, if you know, and I'd be happy to engage with anybody that wanted to chat for sure. You know, and I hope I'm looking forward to chatting with you again soon. You know what I mean?
Yes, I can't believe it's gonna be less than 3 weeks,
Yeah,
almost to the date, and it's gonna be a great opportunity. I mean, we're gonna meet. There's gonna be so many people on that stream, and I just hope that
that's
my
awesome.
bandwidth is big enough to to
Right.
take all you fuckers in because there's gonna be so many of you there. Just I'm like, oh man, like Matt Witt and
That's
fucking
a
Athena
testament to your
Mason.
hard
And,
work, man. That's a
um,
testament to your hard work with all this, man. That's a payoff, man. And I'm so happy for you. That that it's coming together for you like this. You know what I mean? It's like I said, podcasts and stuff were never really a thing for me. But I've been so you know since I've seen, been introduced to your podcast, man, I've been so happy to just, see all the different mindsets that you put on and, all the work that you do to get the information out that you get out, man. And it's like, you deserve that accolade of pulling something like what you got going on in a couple weeks. You deserve that. And that's, I'm excited for you, man. I can't wait to be a part of that. It's going to be a lot of fun. I didn't realize it was going to be that many. Like, I knew you were like, oh, I still got a couple people I'm trying to get. I didn't know what to
Oh
expect,
no,
but
it's
it's
full.
awesome.
I couldn't even, and it's crazy. I wanted to almost because it's going to be a live stream. So this we're going to have like 10 people based on screen, and then there's going to be obviously people who knows what they're going to be asking us. People coming in from just all over the internet, and just people who follow the show too. And that's why I'm probably going to have the advertising out by this weekend for sure. Like it'll definitely be this weekend, but it's a lot. It's a lot. There's a lot of unknown, but it's a positive unknown, and
Yeah,
it's just I'm definitely excited for this. It wasn't even my idea; it was Zach's idea. Zach Hyden, the
right,
Mad Redneck, thought it would be a good opportunity to kind of put yourself out there, and you're probably the person that can do something like this. And of course, it's not going to be like we couldn't care fucking less if Kamala or Trump, whatever, but we're gonna obviously be talking about other stuff, not just that shit. I mean,
right,
it's almost gonna be like the background, and that's maybe I'm giving them too much information right now. But I think if people are looking to see some shit like they're watching on CNN, then you need to watch Dana Bash and John
right,
King and all those clowns of fucking Sean Hannity and all those assholes.
right,
You can watch them; they're available 24/7. But our show's not going to be it's not going to be like that whatsoever. We may be talking about organizing or anything. It's not going to be like that. And
right,
that's the point though. We're trying to get people in to be like, dude, fucking think about something else besides this.
right,
Like this isn't the
right,
Super Bowl, man. This isn't supposed to be like the Super Bowl. This is like, man, if are you really scared of Project 2025? Or is this just like, okay, I participated in something greater than myself?
right,
Like, is this something that's really like earth shattering to you? Or is it just like, okay, it's a cool thing to do? Like, I'm punching in. Or they kind of admitting in the back of their minds, like, okay, I don't have any real control. I'm just a part of this shit like everyone else is.
right.
Like, do they
They're
really feel
resigning.
like they're pushing
They're
the needle?
resigning. Yes, it's definitely like resigning to. There's no fight left. As a whole. You know what I mean? And that's why like some of us just gotta stay in the background and keep trying to encourage people to stand up and open their eyes and let's build something different. You know what I mean? Like, you know, the world is definitely resigned to this shit though. In so
Gosh,
many
man,
ways, and it's
it's
heartbreaking.
something else, man. I tell you, I just there's so much stuff, man, on November the 5th. I just don't, man. if some of the shit comes out, it comes out, man. I tell you, people know that I don't have anything to hide here. Like I really don't, and that's
You know, now that I know, like, that managed to get that many people to participate and stuff, like, that's going to be a great opportunity, right? For, like, we're going to watch this whole thing unfold in front of us. The world is going to change, before our very eyes, one way or the other. You know what I mean? And, we're going to have this group of people that are going to have an opportunity to face it and say, like, where do we go from here? You know what I mean? What's the direction to keep steering the ship that we're on? You know what I mean? And start having the different conversations that, you know, we're going to start having over and over again with the people around us, because everybody's fears are pretty much the same on both sides, which means
mm-hmm,
everybody's responses to the results are going to be the same to a degree. You know what I mean? So there's going to be this wave of, oh my God, regardless of what happens, so it's going to be an opportunity to prepare for that. And, having a bunch of, like-minded, um, curious, organizational minded people, looking at this thing unfolding, where, we might actually be able to say, like, hey, this is what we can learn from this, and figure out what organizing's next move is. You know what I mean? So I'm
mm-hmm.
looking forward to it, man. I can't wait. I'm so excited. Thank you for having me tonight. Thank you for inviting me, you know, in a couple weeks. I'll, you know, I've been anxious for a conversation like this for a while, I'm glad I got to have it with you. I'm anxious for a night like we got coming up, and, you know, it's a lot of fun.
And I will let you go, but I definitely even what you just said then about, man, the impact that that night could have, and it's like we're in a whole different mindset. Like we're not even looking at what, like we could. It's really an opportunity to build something. It is, because we're going to
Right,
be getting all. I don't know who's going to be coming in that feed. There's going to be all types of, like, I don't want to call them trolls, but there's going to be a lot of just grown up people, man, based on what happens that night. And we're going to
right,
be like, we don't give a shit either way or the other.
right. Right. I mean,
And
I'm built for that. I live for that. You know what I mean? Like the whole nature of, you know, agitating is designed on drawing them out and accepting their confrontation. You know what I mean? So, like, I welcome it just for the simple fact that, win, lose, or draw, it's invoking conversation, right? We're giving them a chance to get it out, and
mm-hmm,
hopefully we can be like, all right, step back, you know, and see if we can't bring them in. You know what I mean? And if not, oh well. It's still an opportunity. And like
exactly.
people are allowed. Uh, we talked about being uneducated and just like misinformed and all these other things, and guided and manipulated, and you know, so like we're gonna need to give people that space to get it out. You know, begin healing. You know what I mean? Try to, you know, come to terms with what we can do to move forward
mm-hmm.
in
Well,
the face of fascism. you know?
you exactly. There you go. And on that note, I'm gonna let you go. And I broke my promise by Facebook. I noticed that people were like, damn, you didn't deactivate your Facebook. And I'm in a better space mentally. My mental health is pretty strong right now. And that's the reason why I still got it up, because I wasn't sure, man. The last election cycle, man, they talked about me so bad. I didn't know you at the time, but they talked so much shit about me, man. Like, I tried to make it seem like it didn't bother me, but man, it's like people that thought were cool with me, man, dude, they made me like question, like, dude, like you're kind of fucked up what you're doing right now, Kiko, like not picking a side.
Right.
And I'm like, these motherfuckers shame me so bad, man. I swear. And that's
I
the
was there.
reason.
I've been there. I've been there. Yeah.
That's kind of what I was like, dude. If this is what this shit's gonna be about, man, I deactivate this shit, man. Like the Facebook, man, I can't do that. Like it was that bad, but now it's like I don't know. I'm okay with it now. Like it's good now. It's gonna be okay.
Right. You don't always have to engage them. You know what I mean? Like I said, give them that space. You know, they're on this platform sharing this content. You know, like it's on my personal social media page. Like I generally, a lot of times I will engage, but on my Voices of Poverty page, like I'm not there to stifle anybody. You know what I mean? And it's like I'm not there to argue. You know what I mean? Like go ahead, get it out. You know what I mean? Cool story. You know what I mean? Like on to keep moving, just keep moving forward. And, there's always going to be that. There's always going to be, you know, people trying to knock you back down. I mean, I think that's just the Philadelphia in me. You know what I mean? Like, we got that, that Rocky and all that stuff, you know, how hard can get hit and keep moving forward, that kind of thing, the whole underdog mentality, you know what I mean? It's always resigned my mind to accepting criticism and pushing through criticism and, being on that island when everybody's throwing stones at it, you know what I mean? But eventually eventually you meet some, a couple more people that, you're not alone anymore and it's not as distant and there's you see why it's worth doing what you're doing, you know what I mean, because it ain't about you, it ain't about them, it's about the work, it's about the mission, it's about planting that seed, for a tree you're probably never going to get to sit on. You know what I mean? And that's the bigger picture, you know it ain't about you.
On that note, I think that's a proper conclusion because otherwise I'm gonna keep you going, man. It's 12:09 in the morning on the East Coast. It's 11:09 here in Nashville, Tennessee. But beautiful people, episode 139. Share with all your friends and family. Um, we're going to do our part here at Kiko's Freethinkers Forum. I know Anthony is too. We got to keep getting these conversations out, these messages. Again, stay tuned. Anthony is going to join us again within the next 3 weeks on November the 5th for that election night coverage. I'm super excited for that, for him to meet all these cool voices, all of us together being on there at the same time. And enjoy the rest of your night. Cheers, everybody.